Loud. All right. We good? Okay. Everybody give me a thumbs up in the room if you're good. Okay, sweet. Well, hey guys, welcome to the Business Planning Clinic. My name is Jenny Mosier. As you can see there on the screen, and you'll see that I often get the mirroring turned backwards when I'm pointing to my slides, but I'll get it down probably right at the end of class. Thank you so much for being in the Business Planning Clinic today. I know that you guys have a lot of options for different things you can go to plan your business for the year, and it means a lot that you have chosen to attend this class today. Katie, during part of the class, I might have you guys come off mute during the economic model so that we can talk and ask questions and go through things, because I do want you guys to fully understand this, and typically is a very interactive class. I will run for 3 hours and we will take a break right in the middle. And so you guys hang with me. We cover mindset and models first, the economic model. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and cover the last 3 models. So you're in for a treat, especially because I figured out this new fun thing where I live inside a slideshow. So again, in case you weren't aware, I've come to the Business Planning Clinic, and I would like to share with you why the Business Planning Clinic is so important to me. So when I first got into real estate, I was much like you guys. I was attending a lot of classes and trying to figure out what was going on. And I have sat in your seat before. So whether you're an individual agent, a buyer's agent, a listing agent, a director of sales, or a rainmaker, or actually in a leadership position, I've actually held all of those across Keller Williams. And so I understand where you're coming from, and this plan works for everyone. So when I got into the business, it was 2011, and let's just say the market wasn't exactly as hot as it is right now. It was a heavy buyer's market, and I didn't have a strong reason to get into real estate. I'd never bought a house before. I didn't know a real estate agent. I was actually having a hard time finding one to talk to about getting into the business back in 2011. Everyone had sort of fled as the market had decreased. And I joined as an agent in our office, and I was trying to figure it out. I was doing a lot of leases. I went to my team leader at the time and had said, "Can I create a business plan around making $35,000 a year?" And he was like, "Jenny, you can do better than that." And I said, "Not with leases." And he says, "Right, you got to actually sell houses." So I didn't have a huge mindset or any idea of what real estate could offer me. But I was clicking along my first year in the business, and I was getting towards the end of the year. I was an individual agent, and I was doing okay. I had 1 or 2 under contract, and a few in the pipeline coming up as potentials. And it was around this time of year. It's actually closer to December. And our market center had a vision board class. Are you guys familiar with a vision board? Raise your hand so I can see if you're familiar with a vision board. Okay, very Oprah-esque, right? Back in the day. And so I went to this class where everyone was making vision boards, and they handed everyone poster board. And the first thing I did with my poster board in the vision board class is I cut my poster board in half. I didn't even have a mindset of being able to think about enough things that I wanted from my life to fill a whole poster board. So I just cut it in half. And on that poster board, I put 3 things. I put that I wanted to make $75,000 a year. And honestly, that was a stretch. It just, I wanted to write 35, but everyone else was writing really big numbers that made that look kind of crazy. And so I put 75 because um, I couldn't write 6 figures at the top of the board. It seemed like writing a billion. It just seemed so out of touch. The next thing I put on the board is I wanted an Audi. When I moved to Atlanta from my small town in North Georgia, I had never seen an Audi before. They looked really cool. And from the time I was in college, I had wanted one. And so I printed a picture of a used Audi. I literally Googled used Audi and put that on my vision board, an A4. And then the last thing I put on my vision board as I sat there thinking, what in the world do I want, is I put an iPad. So again, don't give me too much flack. It was 2011 and iPads were all the rage. And I was going to a lot of team meetings and a lot of classes because I didn't have anything else to do really. And they, you know how in team meetings sometimes vendors will like collect business cards to give things away, like books or whatever. Well, a lot of the vendors were offering giveaways for iPads. So I thought, well, at least if, I don't achieve anything else in my vision board, maybe I can win an iPad, right? So 33% of my vision board, guys, was based on pure luck and getting my name drawn out of a hat at a team meeting. And I took my little vision board at the end of the class and I carried it back to my office. They gave you free office space at the time because the market was a little bit rough. And I carried it back to my office and I thought, how in the world am I going to be able to do this? This is a lot of money to make. That's a whole car to buy. I'd been driving my same car that I had since college, my Honda. And the iPad I kind of had a hope for. I figured if I entered enough contests, I'll probably win one eventually. So about a month went by, and honestly, I had a business plan that was based on something as I was going into the next year in January that perhaps some of you have based your business plan on before. Has anyone here ever based their business plan on this word? Yeah, right. So in real estate, we get to start back at zero every January, it seems like. And my vision board was based on hope. I hope my phone rings. I hope people call me. I hope I'm doing the right things, right? And I didn't. Okay, are you getting up for some reason, friend? Am I doing something? Am I off base? All good? Keep going, guys. Hang on, let me get you guys a little bigger in here so I can see your faces better. Okay. Are we still good? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. And I just sort of hoped I was doing the right thing, and things would be moving along in the right way. So, about that time, a husband and wife team, Andy and Leslie Peters, asked me to come talk to them about joining their team. And, I had closed like two houses, so I thought I was doing pretty good on my own. And I told them that I would consider coming to talk to them. And I did. And the first time we had a conversation, they wanted me to be a buyer's agent and join a team. And nobody was really doing that in our office. And it wasn't a thing. And I wasn't into it. So I said no and moved on. Well, then, um, about a week later, Andy called me and said, hey, we have a different kind of conversation we want to have with you. Can you come back and talk to us again? And I said, sure. So I walked into the office and there sat my vision board. And they said, we went into your office and we found this vision board. Is this truly all that you want? And I said, yeah. And they go, can you think of anything else? And I said, no, not really. That's pretty much it. I was 25 years old, by the way, and had no children and didn't really need very much, obviously. And they said, well, we have a plan for you to get everything on this vision board. I said, well, you do? They said, yeah, we know by the end of the year, if you follow our plan, you can get there. And I said, well, I'd be interested in hearing about that. And they pulled up a computer screen and it had an Excel chart. And in the Excel chart was all the leads that they had gotten over the past year that they were unable to service because they were too busy. Sign calls that just, never got answered or returned, and open houses that never got held. And those were just to name a few. And they said, we actually have more warm leads than we really even know what to do with. And here's our average price point. And we know that if you have a conversion rate of X, it will move you to Z. And we can teach you how to have an amazing buyer consultation. And we can teach you all about this business. And by the end of the year, based on the leads, the price point, the conversion rates, that will net you this much money, which should be able to meet your number of 75,000, buy your Audi, and you know what? Maybe even throw in an iPad. And I said, I don't understand how you can predict that. And they said, oh, well, we've been doing business planning. And I said, business planning? It's not just hope, right? And they said, no, we have a real plan. And guys, that is the conversation that changed my life, the business plan. And that's what we're going to work on for you guys today, because you can have a predictable income in this business. You can have a plan that you work from every single week to get you what it is you want, so that when you're sitting here this time next year in 2022, you'll have a plan that you can execute and move towards. So that's why I'm passionate about it. And I'm going to back up 2 slides and show you guys our agenda for today. Okay, so we first start with our getting started, which congratulations, you've already made it through. We're about to move into models and mindset, which is probably the most important part of getting on board with the business planning, because you understand the foundation, and we talk about that all throughout the rest of the class. Then we have the economic model. This is the math heavy part, so I'm going to have you all hang in there with me, but I give you lots of examples and we talk through things slowly, and I've updated the slides so that you're I've thrown in a few extras in here for clarification purposes. This is the Jenny Mosier version of the business planning clinic, so you get the Jenny Mosier spin on it. Then we'll take a quick break and come back and do lead gen, budget, and organizational model. We'll put it all together and get you guys out of here. Sound good? Fantastic. Okay. So the 5 fundamental models, there's 5 models we just talked through. And so the goals of this course are for you to understand that those exist and understand the general basis of them, create your plan, and then execute your plan throughout the year. Now, we move pretty quickly in this. That being said, Katie's obviously in the room. I'm not sure if there's other leadership there, but just about everyone with Keller Williams is going to be willing to talk through this with you. And I'm going to give you another little tool that Katie can share with everyone at the end of the class that will make it easier to consolidate your business plan into one place that's not just the workbook that you're working out of. It will be my gift to you at the end. But as we move through this, just remember that this is a plan for you to have in place over the next 4 weeks. And it is expected that you would take this high-level overview of information and go spend a half day or a day with yourself or your team or your coach or your team leader working through the rest of the plan. All right, let's keep rolling. Okay, mindset and models. So a model, what is a model, right? Well, a model in my mind is something that's perfect, okay? It's something that we work off of. It's the idea that someone's gone before us and done something, and we have the ability to copy it, right? And make it our own. And then mindset is right here, right? Mindset is the key to almost everything we do. So without a proper mindset, we can't execute the models. And so that's why these are both in this section. So moving on again. Now, I joke throughout this class that Gary Keller loves a triangle. You are going to see triangles all over the place in this business planning clinic and throughout much of the Keller Williams material. And it is a very powerful visual and a powerful tool. So when you look at the model here on your left, you see that that the triangle itself is a model. Okay, that's what's sort of ironic about this. But the idea is that if you start with a model, if you start with a plan, if you start with something someone's tried before that has a proven track record of success, and then throw on creativity, which is more or less like the Jenny factor or the Katie factor or the you factor, what makes your business you, on top of the model, your business has a stable foundation and it's more likely to thrive. Versus if you do what a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is start with that creativity, right? Starting with the idea that you're going to create the wheel yourself, that you have a plan that works for you and you're different and the models don't work for you and this is what you're going to do. And then you attend a class like this and you slap a model on top of it because it's something someone told you to do, or you slap a model on top of something after you've talked to your MAPS coach, or you slap a model on something after you read MREA, and your business feels very wobbly and you can't figure out why. It's because you haven't started with that stable foundation. So I'm not saying scrap everything you got if you've already started a little bit too creatively, but go back and base your business off the models that we're going to talk about today and see what can change in your world. Okay, is anyone familiar with this chart? This chart is called the E to P chart, entrepreneurial to purposeful. And who likes to say those words out loud? They're a mouthful, right? This chart is one of the 6 personal perspectives, which is the foundational models for Keller Williams. And this chart used to look kind of different. They've updated it. I taught some material about 2 weeks ago with the old version of this chart, and I'll mention something about it here in just a second. But this chart has stood the test of time. And that's because this chart, if you can understand the concept of this and embrace it, your world will change. So it's the idea, let me move this over so I can see, that we all, boop, going this way, have a natural ability and that we ride it on up to a certain level of achievement. But we can only take ourselves so far. So think of it this way. Say you have a little boy who loves playing baseball. The Braves are in the World Series, so we're going to go with this. We're going to go with this analogy, okay? You have a little boy who loves playing baseball, and he's playing in his backyard. He's 6 years old. He's hitting the ball around with maybe his sister, or maybe his dad or his mom, and he's really good at baseball. Like he's got that natural ability. If he wants to make it to the major leagues, can he just stay in his backyard playing? No, he has to make some changes. No matter how great his natural ability, he can't make it to the major leagues without making changes, right? The first is he's got to start playing, with the team of some sort, right? He's got to get out there. He will probably change coaches in his lifetime, and they will get better and better and better. Maybe his dad was his first coach, but by high school level, he outgrew his dad's ability to coach. He'll start playing with better players, right? He'll meet his match for the first time, maybe on that college team, someone who's just as good as he's been, and it's going to level him up and make him better because there's some competition there, right? What else happens to an athlete as they continue to grow? They practice more. I mean, think about how often professional athletes or even high school level, college levels practice compared to how often they play, right? It's crazy. And they get more coaches and they get more competition. Well, we can all understand this analogy as it applies to sports because we know that little boy is never going to make it to a World Series baseball team sitting in his backyard hitting balls around against a tree. It's just weird, right? But we know that he took steps to level up that natural ability to break through over and over again. And that's what you have the opportunity to do in your business. Because as real estate agents, we all have natural ability, right? But it can only take us so far. Oftentimes, our natural ability is our ability to talk a lot, right? We like people. We have great relationships. We have an entrepreneurial spirit around us, right? But that can only get us so far. So what do we do when we reach our achievement ceiling? Well, as it shows in the slide here, and this is what the old one outlines, that this one doesn't, but that when you hit that natural achievement ceiling, do you see how the arrow goes back down over there, over there, over there? It goes back down. That's because when we hit our head over and over again, we start to get discouraged and we go back down, and then we actually start looking for greener pastures, right? We start looking for a way out because we say, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't how I want to live, achieving the same thing over and over again. But when we can break through those natural ceilings of achievement, then we can continue to grow. And honestly, the growth is unstoppable. It's completely unstoppable if you let it be. And those breakthrough moments, just like with this little boy, are going to be one of two things. It's going to be a person in your life, or it's going to be a system, a model that you put into place. So it could be a coach, it could be a team member, it could be an accountability partner, it could be your first admin, it could be your first buyer's agent, but someone will help you break through. And if it's not a someone, it's a something, right? It's a system, it's a model. It's embracing command and understanding all that it can do. It's having a 36 touch program for your lead gen that you actually execute every single year, right? There are many, many ways to break through your ceilings of achievement. And so, as we're talking through this today, ask yourself, what do I keep doing over and over and over again that I'm tired of doing over and over and over again? And I want to break through. Do I need to find a person or do I need to find a system? And can I find it in the materials here today? All right. These are some limiting beliefs. I don't spend a lot of time on these, but this is the idea that you guys, we're all born with beliefs in our head. They get put in when we're really little kids from our, well-meaning parents and grandparents that tell us things like, I can't do that, or I don't deserve to make a lot of money, or big is bad, right? I'm going to stay small. That's what, would be expected of me. And so we have those similar beliefs that are actually part of the models. And so one of the things, this is shifting to mindset, that we have to think about is, what are you hanging on to and telling yourself that's perhaps untrue, right? A limiting belief is something that you actually believe, but when you look out at others, it's just untrue. It's a myth. One is, I don't need models, or they limit my freedom, or their opinions, they don't work for me. I don't need to change. I'm happy where I am, right? If any of these things are going through your head or live in the back of your mind, I just ask you to, just for the next couple of hours, set them aside, right? Set them aside and say, maybe they do work. Maybe they don't limit your freedom, but rather give it to you. How about their facts, and that they are proven over and over and over again? And maybe, just maybe, if you opened up the opportunity to change, you'd get the results that you always dreamed of. So set those aside for the next little bit and work on turning those around. So as I mentioned, the mindset is the first, kind of the first domino in really winning in real estate. I mean, this can be a very, very, very difficult career for some, right? It's not an easy job. That's why we have the ability to make a lot of money, frankly, because not everyone can do it or succeed in it. But I find, and what Gary found when he wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, is that agents who are highly successful all think similarly. And there are these 9 traits that they've listed out here in ways that they think. Now, I just want to make a quick plug for the MREA book. Trust me, I don't get any royalties off of it or anything. But the red book is was written back in 2003, but it's still relevant today. And they are promising an MREA 2 coming out. But what I found is, I read the MREA every year, actually listen to it now, and I hear something different every time, because I initially thought that the MREA didn't apply to me. I didn't want to be a millionaire real estate agent. I just wanted to make 50 grand. That was good enough for me. Like, where's that version of that book? And so when it was gifted to me from my team leader, I set it aside and didn't pick it up again for a number of years. What I learned when I picked it up and actually started reading it, long before I was a millionaire real estate agent or on a millionaire real estate agent team, is that more than half the book is applicable to someone brand new in the business, like right now, today. And this course is actually just a condensed version of the book. And so anything we talk about today that kind of triggers you to say, "Oh, I'd be interested in knowing more about that," go find it in the book, because it's there. Because this course is basically written off of that book. And I mentioned that because we're not going to go through all 9 of the ways a millionaire real estate agent thinks. We're going to focus in on 3 of them. But if you want to know more about that, it's all in the book. So download it via Audible, listen to it. Gary reads it. It's kind of cool. He adds little intros and updates it and things like that. But if you want more information, you can go straight to the MREA. So we've got 3 ways that millionaire real estate agents think, right, that we're going to go through really quickly. The first is that they think powered by a big why. You guys familiar with this term? Big Y? Give me a head nod pretty aggressively because you're kind of small on my screen or give me a no. Okay, perfect. Okay, so big Y, and I'm just catching up in my little facilitator back there. So thinking powered by a big Y. Your big why is your purpose, right? It's your mission. This powers you on the days that you don't want to get up and keep going. And if you haven't taken time to identify your big why, this is where you start. This is where you start. And your big why is what fuels you. I share the story that when I first made it on the ALC of my office is a very proud moment for me. I went to what my team leader called the Big Y breakfast at her house. It was part of being on the ALC. You got invited to the Big Y breakfast at her house, which is beautifully decorated for Christmas with casseroles and mimosas. So I was all in. And she had everyone go around and share their Big Y. And this ended up being called the Big Cry breakfast because everyone was crying by the end of it. Because your big why should be so purposeful and so meaningful to you that you almost cry when you talk about it. And your big why can be lots of little whys that add up to one thing. It can change. You know, I've been in real estate over 10 years now. My big why at 25 is, you know, with no children, living, you know, in Atlanta in the middle of Buckhead is totally different now than, you know, being a 36-year-old divorced mom with 2 little kids, right? It looks very different now, but it still fuels me in the same way. It still makes me get up every day and work and do my job because I know what my goals are and they're tied to my big why, which is providing for myself and my kids. But not just providing for us, building a big life with big opportunities and showing my daughter that that's possible. And just because she's a girl, you know, she can do anything that she wants. That's something that very much powers me, right? So what is it for you? I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to think on it. And in your book, there is a place, if you guys have the workbooks, if not, get out a little piece of notebook paper. And what's kind of the first thing that comes to mind is the reason why you do what you do. And just jot it down. This can be developed and changed and talked through, but I'm just want to get your kind of creative juices flowing on this. Why do you do what you do? Your big why can be deeply personal. It can be obvious. It can be a lot of things. But your purpose has to be for you. Ultimately, it has to be for you. So while it may be providing for others, your purpose is yours alone. So this is a post-class activity I would challenge you guys to do together. Maybe take a team meeting around this. Maybe use it for your ALC, or create just a class where everyone comes in and shares and talks through this topic because it's that important. And in fact, every year I write down my big why and my goal on a little index card, just like a half a index card. I write them down on the same piece of paper and I keep it with me in my wallet so that I see it pretty often every time I pull out that credit card. And it's a reminder, not just of what I want from a goals standpoint, but why I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. So that's a great practice. All right. So the first way millionaire real estate agents think is they're powered by a big why. The second thing is they think big goals and big models. I struggled with this. I told you guys I cut my vision board in half. I had a really hard time with thinking big for a long time. In fact, I still love an attainable goal. You tell me, Jenny, you got to sell 36 houses. I'll go sell exactly 36 houses. And here's why. We set ourselves up to achieve the goals that we set. So follow along with me. In the book, it gives the analogy of climbing Mount Everest, which I think would be frankly horrifying. I don't know if anyone has ever heard anyone talk about climbing Mount Everest and what all is involved in that, but honest to God, it is not something I'd really want to sign up for. Amazing, but not for me, right? So I can't get on board with the Mount Everest analogy, but I can get on board and I do understand, even though I still don't want to do it, but I understand the concept of running a marathon. Has anyone in the room ever run a marathon? Raise your hand high if you have, so I can see you. Okay, sweet. There's usually like one. So it's common enough that it's happened, but not common enough that everyone in the room has done it, right? So when you run a marathon, you prepare, you start preparing for the marathon. I mean, maybe you're like Superwoman and you woke up one day and just ran it the next. I don't know. I would die, but for the most part, what I understand is that when you're preparing for a marathon, a lot in your world has to change because you have a goal of running 26.2 miles, right? So if we were in a classroom setting, I would ask you guys to share with me different things you do to prepare for a marathon, but I think you understand, right? You create a new schedule, your eating habits change. If you're me, you're buying a new pair of shoes for sure. And life in general is revolving around meeting this goal of running a marathon. You have to have practice runs leading up to it that take up a lot of time. So you have to adjust your schedule in order to fit that in around the life that you're already living, right? You have milestones that you need to meet by certain timeframes to know that you're going to be able to complete the marathon. Your hydration habits, your eating habits, all of that change. On the day of a marathon, should you be able to run a 5K? God, I hope so. You're going to be in trouble if you're not, right? Because you've prepared to run a marathon, let's just say you don't finish for some reason. You've still blown past a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, right? On your way to a marathon because you set yourself up for that. What does that have to do with selling real estate, Jenny? Well, everything. Because when you set yourself up to have small goals, that's what you plan your life around. And so many of us set our goals based on exactly what it is we need. Like, here's what I need to pay my bills, pay off my debt, and like take one vacation. And that's your goal. And guess what? You're probably going to hit it because that's what you have to have. What if your goal was double that, triple that? That would mean that you would be setting up your life differently. Your habits would look different. How long you lead generate, how many appointments you go on, your lead generation plan for your 36 touch, how many people you have in your database. All of that would change because you're setting yourself up to do double or triple what you really need. By the way, when you get to the end of a race, whether it's 5K, 10K, whatever, what do you typically do? You stop. Because it would be super weird to just keep running, right? You stop. In fact, as you approach the finish line, maybe you give it a little extra gas to get over the finish line, but most of the time people actually slow down, like, oh, I'm there. Okay, perfect. And they jog on through this finish line. If your finish line is so attainable, so close to you, as you get to it, you slow down, you stop. Agents this time of year who are about to reach the goal that they set back in January are coming off the gas, right? They're like, whew, made it to the holidays. Versus those who have a stretch goal that they've pushed out towards and they're still going. And here's the thing, not only are they going to finish strong, they're setting themselves up for an amazing quarter one. Because the work you do now, it pays you in quarter one. You understand that, right? That's why we business plan now. So if you're coming off the gas now because you've either reached your goals because they weren't very big or you've given up on them or you never had them in the first place, understand that these habits start today. Don't slow down. Finish strong because it's going to take you into a strong first quarter. When you shoot a bow and arrow, right, and you pull back and there's a bullseye, where do you aim for the bullseye? High or low? You aim high because you know that the arrow is going to drop. Because of what? Gravity, right? And in my mind, gravity is all the stuff that happens in life that you weren't expecting. Anyone see the global pandemic coming? Anyone see it lasting all the way through 2021? Not me. What about those of you who, had to keep kids home from school for longer than you expected, or lost a loved one to this awful disease, or got sick yourself, right? If we don't set our goals high and aim high, then when that drop happens, we haven't accounted for it and you're not going to have enough. So set big goals with big models and big systems so that you can fly past all the little goals of what it is you need and get to what you really want, and have accounted for all the things that could go wrong in between, because we're all humans and we all live life and it happens to everybody. So as we goal set going into the economic model, I want you to think about a goal that's a stretch goal. People say, well, Jenny, how much is a stretch goal? Do I write $1 million? That seems silly, but that's a stretch, right? Well, I heard a great definition of a stretch goal, and it's that you have about a 50-50 shot of making it. I kind of like that. I'm like, okay, so if I'm a person who made $100,000 last year, which is a good amount of money, and next year I want to make 200,000, that feels like maybe I can do it. Yeah, about a 50-50 shot to grow that much in a year, to double your income in real estate. Versus, okay, I want to make $800,000 next year. You made $100,000 this year, $800,000 next year. I don't know. Probably not going to happen. Not a 50-50 shot. It could happen, but maybe back that down. Or I want to make $110,000. Like, come on. Now you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So as you're evaluating these goals, run it through the odds. What are my chances? And that can help you create your stretch goals. All right, next. Okay, think, action, and accountability. So real estate agents, well, humans in general actually, are terrible at holding themselves accountable. We are full of all the excuses for ourselves, right? We know we didn't get a lot of sleep last night. We know that, our kids are driving us crazy and we can't, get to every single thing that we need. But a true accountability partner or person is on the outside, and they're not really worried about your excuses. They're worried about whether or not you got it done. And when we look at accountability and setting up a system for it, this is a really cool fact that if you just write down your goals, like if you literally just put them on a piece of paper, you're 42.1, which seems like a strange, very exact number, percent more likely to achieve them than if they just lived in your head. So just writing down your goals, guys, gets us a much higher likelihood that we're going to achieve them than just living with them in your head. And then if you throw accountability on top of that, if you throw in someone checking up on you and systems for that, then you are 77.6 more likely to achieve your goal. And I think that the word accountability gets a negative connotation oftentimes. And I think of accountability as a form of love, right? Someone loves you enough to not accept your excuses. Do we hold our children accountable to certain standards? Yeah. And why do we do that? Because we love them. So accountability isn't just a boss. It isn't just someone coming down on you going, "Did you make your 100 contacts this week?" Right? It's someone who cares enough to follow up and not accept the excuses. Then, if you do miss that accountability piece, if you don't make the goal, then they're also there to help you revise them. And what's the plan for achieving the goal? So, an example of this is when I came back from my first maternity leave was like the day after I had my baby, from having my daughter, I was behind on my goals. I really did take about 2 months off. And I had a slow start. I was a new mom. I was figuring that out with a little baby. I was in sales. I didn't like leaving her. I didn't like going to show property and leaving her. I didn't like putting her in daycare, all the things. And I was way off my goals. And I talked to my MAPS coach, and he said, "Well, what accountability aside from me do you have around these goals?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. My team knows I need to achieve them, but I sort of knew they'd let me off the hook because they'd go, 'Oh yeah, well she's a new mom,' and they had other buyers agents picking up the slack. At this point, I was a buyer's agent on the team." And he said, "Well, what about all the people you know? Does everyone know you're back to work after having Kate? Does everyone know that you're taking on new clients at this point?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, go think on that and come back to me next week with a plan." MAPS coaches. So I decided to go to Facebook, and this was in 2014. And I created a hashtag called Jenny Sells 36. So I wanted to sell 36 homes between, this is about March of that year to the end of the year. And I didn't have a big, huge pipeline for it. And I only had like one closing coming up. So this was a big feat for me, huge. So I started that week, and at my closing that I did have on the books, which I think was like a new construction I had put under contract before I'd gone on maternity leave. I hashtag Jenny Sells 36, hashtag one down. And I put my goal out there on social media and said, "I have a goal to sell 36 homes before the end of the year, and I could use your help if you're so willing. But more than anything, I want some accountability around it. And here's what I'm doing." People loved it. They're like, "Well, yeah, sure, we'll help." So the year clicks along, a couple more months goes by, and things are starting to really pick up for me. I'm getting referrals from sources that I didn't normally get referrals from. I am hashtagging every time I have a closing. So now we're at like Jenny Sells 36, hashtag 7 down, hashtag 8 down. And we're getting into the summer months. And I actually saw my cousin at a family event in July, and she was like, she didn't even live here. She lives in Florida. I'm in Atlanta. And she said, "Jenny, how are you doing on your goal? Are you going to reach it?" And I'm like, "What are you, my boss? What are you, my coach? Get off my back, Susanna," right? But she said, "Well, I really want you to meet your goal. I know somebody in Atlanta and they're looking to buy. I thought you might want me to put you in contact." And I was like, "Oh, right. Yes. Thank you." So those sorts of things continued to happen all throughout the year. And I would hashtag everybody as they ended up closing. Well, last day of the year comes, and I had a closing get pushed into the next year, lender delay. I closed 35. And I took to Facebook to send out an apology to all the people I'd let down by not closing my 36 transactions. And then I thought, that's crazy. I closed 35, which is way more than I was on track to close. And look at all these people who helped me. And I started tagging all my clients on Facebook who had closed that year, and then all the people who'd referred those people to me. And before I knew it, I had this long list of 60 or 70 people I tagged that had helped me that year towards my goals. And of course, everyone, was like, "Oh, this is great. This is amazing." No one went, "Jenny, I'm really upset that you didn't get to 36. What a waste of my time watching this," right? But accountability doesn't have to just look like calling someone every single Monday and telling them what your numbers were for the week. Yeah, that's accountability, and it's quite effective as it turns out. But it can also come from all different sources. So, who in your family holds you accountable? Have you shared your goals with your children, with your spouses? Have you shared them with your best friends? Have you shared them on your social media page? Maybe not. And oftentimes we don't share our goals because we're scared. We're afraid we won't hit them and we'll look like failures. We're afraid people will think we're crazy when we put out there what it is we want. But the truth is, we as humans want to help each other, right? We do. You do. You want to help other people. If you see someone in need and you can help, you want to. But we don't ask for help very often. So, where in your world can you turn accountability into asking for help, into putting out there what it is you're looking for and asking for help to get it? Fellow agents, your team leader, your family, and look for those things because, again, accountability increases your chance of hitting your goals by almost 78%. So, why not put it out there? Okay. Now, the next and last part of this section is the wheel of accountability or accountability feedback loop. Yes. And I liken this to a football game. So, because again, I love analogies. So, if you go to the top of the wheel, setting goals, right? Set goal is the first part of the feedback loop. And what does that mean in a football game? Well, the goal is usually to win, right? So, the goal is to win. Then you do the activities. Well, what are the activities? You play. Okay. Then you measure the results. What's that? Well, that's the scoreboard. Have you ever been to an athletic event, maybe for little children where they don't keep score? Most boring thing you'll ever go to in your life. I can promise you I've done it many times. I don't understand it. I want to know the score. So you measure results. You have to measure your results. This is the scoreboard. Then you evaluate the process. And in my analogy, I consider this halftime. That's why I use the football game analogy. If you're a big football fan, no, you guys are from Alabama, you probably are. When you go into halftime, that can really change a game, can't it? And it does quite often, especially like in college ball, because it's just less predictable, frankly, than the NFL. And the adjustments that can be made on a college level with a great coach are crazy. They're crazy. And they can totally change a game. I mean, the outcome totally changes. This happened to us in Atlanta in the Super Bowl a few years ago, and people still can't talk about it. But when you take time to stop and evaluate the process, that's great, but you have to make the adjustments too. So without making the adjustments, nothing changes, and you wind up right back where you were. But the point of this loop is to follow along and ask yourself, okay, what's my goal? Am I doing the activities? How's it going? Measure my results. Evaluate the process. Okay, am I way ahead of goal, way behind goal? And then how can I make adjustments to make it better? How often you need to do this is going to depend on your business and your personality type, but it's got to be more than once a year. You cannot just do this during halftime. You're too late. We are in a 90-day sales cycle. We're too far behind. So I think at a minimum, this accountability loop needs to come into play at least once a quarter. I mean, that's at a minimum. At a minimum, you need to be stopping, looking at your activities, measuring your results, evaluating the process, and making adjustments to your business. Ideally, you do this monthly, and you would do it monthly when you use a tool called the 411. So the 411 stands for 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. And this is broken down in this way. So you write down an annual goal at the top. So this is your yearly goal. So if this is a number of appointments you need to go on, or the number of money you need to make, or the amount of savings you want to have, whatever it is that are annual goals, you put at the top. And then you divide that by 12. Are you guys looking for it in your book? I can tell you where it is. So this is on page, this is 2.13. So you divide by 12 and you list out your monthly goal. So if your goal is to close 36 a year, that means you have to close 3 units a month, right? And then you look down at your weekly goals and you go, okay, if I'm supposed to be closing 3 a month, that means I better be closing about 1 a week. So what am I doing this week on that closing? Now, I will say I don't love using closings as your 411 goal because it's more of a result driven than an activities driven goal. I prefer activity driven goals because we have control over those. So it's more like this year I need to make 5,000 contacts. And that means I need to make this many per month. And that breaks down into this many per week. And you chunk it down and you mark it off as you go. And at the end of the year, you're going to have 12 of these pieces of paper. So you have your annual goal. So you start in January, right? Or start right now for November and do 2 for going to the end of the year. And you write down your annual goals and then you break it down. Okay, so what does that mean I need to do in January in order to meet that annual goal? And then each week, you don't fill this out all at once. Each week, you stop and you say, okay, what do I need to do this week to hit my monthly goal? And then the next week, you stop and you evaluate and you say, okay, did I hit my goal last week? Yes or no? Did I go on my appointments? Did I make my contact goals? Did I write my handwritten notes? Did I send out my lead gen information? Did I have 2 buyer consults? Yes or no? And if you didn't, you move it to the next week because you don't just get to forget about it. You keep moving it until you check it off the list. And then in February, you create another one. You rewrite your annual goals at the top, which is a very powerful activity, by the way, just rewriting them each month. And then you say, okay, in February, in order to achieve my goals for the end of the year, based on what I did in January, where am I? How many appointments do I need to go on? How many contacts do I need to make? Right? And you write down your monthly goals and then you take it each week. And if you're in a really perfect world, then each Sunday, as you go over this 411 leading into your next week, you look at your have to do's and you time block them on your calendar. That's a whole other class, but it's a really great practice to have. I ran my business this way I was on the team. I was a buyer's agent for 5 years and sold anywhere from 30 to 50 homes a year as a buyer's agent, and then a listing agent for 3 years. Sold anywhere from 75 to 100 homes a year as a listing agent. Then I moved into the director of sales role for 2 years on our team, where I hired, coached, and led our agents. And all of those years, I had a 411. I still do now, even in my new role through training and coaching. And I keep a 411 so I keep myself on track and understand where I am on a weekly basis. This is a very powerful tool that once you get used to using it, can change your world. So at the end of each section, it shows you an example of your 411. And so you'll be able to have it filled out by the time you leave the class or when you go back through and review the material. All right. Last thing to mention, our foundational model are leads, listings, and leverage. This is another one of those triangles, right? Every one of the models that we talk about today within the business planning clinic takes us back to one of these: leads, listings, or leverage. And so these are the 5 fundamental models. The economic model is what we're going into next. And this breaks down how much money you want to make and what are the activities to get there. Then the lead gen model, which is more about understanding where your power comes from in lead gen, and not necessarily just talking about getting on the phone and cold calling. The budget model is going to help us know, where does your money go, or where should it go? The organization model is about bringing leverage into your life. And the expansion model, I spend exactly 30 seconds on. So, because it's all of these models just in a new location. So here we go. Take a second in your book or on your blank piece of paper, whatever you have, and write down a couple of ahas and an action step that you plan to take from that first section that we talked about with your models and your mindset and accountability. Yeah, it's good? Okay. Perfect. So we're rolling into the economic model. All right. So the economic model is the first model and the foundational model that encapsulates all the other MREA models within it. I'm going to show you the economic model in this next slide. Let me do a time check. Okay, All right, we're good. I'm going to show you the economic model in this next slide, but I don't want you to get too attached to it because we're going to break it down. So this is it. Like this is terrifying to just look at if you don't have any of the information that follows along with this model. But understand that this is what it is, and we're going to look at this again at the end, and it's going to make a lot more sense. Okay, so first thing is that understanding they added this slide in this year for the business planning clinic. I hope that this is pretty obvious, but in the event that it's not, turns out that your investment in time and how you spend your money combined with your performance and your level of skill determines your outcome, your results. So great. Hope we all know that. Okay, moving on. This exact slide is not in your book. It actually shows up later on in another, I'm moving myself. This shows up later on in the budget model, but it's important to talk about here. So we won't talk about it when we get to the budget model, but I want to spend a second here. So these are going to be terms that we need to define and make sure that we're all clear on. The first is gross commission income, gross closed income. So this is the big number, right? This is kind of what like everybody thinks we make. Does that make sense? Right? It's the model where you're like, oh, I sold a $200,000 house. And you're like, great, made $6,000. You're like, no, I didn't, right? But it's the big number before anything comes out. So that's what gross commission income is. Now, the next thing that we want to look at is what's called cost of sales. Both cost of sales and operating expenses come out of your gross commission income. But people often get these two things confused. So I'm going to go ahead and just let you know that cost of sale, it says cost of acquiring revenue. That's like the most confusing term I've personally ever seen that doesn't resonate with me. But instead, if we look at our operating expenses and define that, then defining cost of sales is a little bit easier. So our operating expenses are our cost of running our business, probably what you imagined. But these costs occur whether or not a transaction closes. So if that's the case, then understand that a cost of sale is a cost that occurs only when a transaction closes. Only when a transaction closes. So an example of that would be your cap that you pay to your market center, or your royalty that you pay to KWRI. Do you pay a cap if you never close anything? Do you pay in your 30% or whatever if you never close anything? Nope. You only pay it when you close something. What about operating expenses? Can you buy a sign and put it in front of a house with a lockbox and that house never close? Did you still have to pay for the sign and the lockbox? But you didn't have to pay your cap. Make sense? There's a very few cost of sales. It's pretty much your cap. If you have a buyer's agent or listing agent on your team, so same thing goes here. If you're a buyer's agent, or if you have a buyer's agent on your team and they never close anything, do you have to pay that buyer's agent half a commission? No, because they never closed anything. Do they pay you? No, because they never closed anything. There's no money exchange. There's no cost of sale that's occurred. The other big one is an agent referral. So an agent sends you a referral from another state or whatever it is. If you never close the transaction, do you pay them a referral fee? No, that's a cost of sale. Sometimes people get hung up here about transaction coordinators, people who do contract to close work. That just varies by vendor. Some people require you to pay them even if it doesn't close. And some people, you put it under contract. If it falls out, then they don't charge you. So just keep that in mind. If they charge you, whether or not it closes, then that's an expense. So again, if you spend money, whether or not the transaction closes, that's an expense. So expenses are pretty much everything else you spend money on. Your cell phone, your office bill, your board dues, your lockbox, you got to pay for all that, whether or not you're selling houses. Cost of sale only occurs when a closing happens. Okay. So you take your gross closed income and you subtract out your cost of sale and you subtract out your operating expenses. That totals your net income. That's what you bring home. Then you pay taxes on it. So it's pre-tax income. I throw in a little thing here in the budget model about taxes, but this section does not address taxes. You got to pay your taxes, and it's something totally different. This is about your business's net income. All right. So those are the definitions. So under cost of sales, right, only occurs when a transaction closes. Okay, moving on. So here's what I mentioned. We're back in your book. We're on page the top of page 3.5. And you have your gross closed income, and you subtract out your operating expenses, and you subtract out your cost of sales, and that equals your net income. Okay? This little chart, the cash flow model, is the idea that your business is coming from two different sides. So if you follow along at the top, this looks kind of complicated, but it's really not. If you follow along at the top, it explains that you have a total GCI. Don't worry about the numbers attached to these and what it says, 2.5 million. Just look at the red words right now. You have a total GCI, and that GCI comes from listings and it comes from buyers, one versus the other. Then you have a buyer cost of sale or a listing cost of sale. So if you have buyer's agents, you have a buyer's cost of sale. If you have a listing agent, you have listing cost of sale. If you don't have buyer agents or listing agents, your cost of sale is essentially just your cap that you pay to your market center. Okay? So, but understand how it's splitting out. So you got the buyer side, and then you have the listing side. Then out of both of those, you have operating expenses that come out. So you take your total GCI, you take out your cost of sale, if you have any beyond your cap, your operating expenses, and that's how you reach your net. For a millionaire real estate agent, someone who's netting $1 million, then you have to make 2.5 in GCI to net $1 million. That's because you have really high operating expenses, about 30% of your business, because it costs a lot to run a team that's closing 300 transactions a year. And you have buyer's agents and listing agents that you're paying out. So your cost of sales is really high. And that's why you only net $1 million when you make 2.5 in GCI. You're not making $1 million, you're not making 2.5 million. You're making 1 million because you've had to subtract out your cost of sale and your operating expenses. Moving on. Another term that's important to throw in right here, because we use it as we work our way through the economic model. Again, not in your book. They took it out this year. I don't know why, but it's the idea of coming up with your average commission rate. So this is where you take your average price point and your average commission rate, and you come up with your average commission per transaction. So Katie, I'm going to let you lead them through this out loud really quickly while you guys are there. So whatever the average price point is, if they know it, or for the market center, times whatever your average commission per transaction is. So in some places that's 3%, sometimes it's 2.5, but be, conservative with it, and have each person come up with their commission per transaction. So in this case, if your average price point that you sell is 200,000 and you typically make 3% off every deal, your average commission per transaction is about $6,000. So you guys work through that and each come up with your average commission per transaction. All right, you guys give me a thumbs up when you're good to go. Okay. Down here at the bottom, I don't know if we have people on Teams in the room today, but if you're working your economic model and you're an agent on a team, the way you adjust for your economic plan is to use a lower commission rate. So let's just say your average commission is 3% and you're on a 50-50 split. You actually take home 1.6% of your commission. So say your average price point is 250,000, then you would times yours by 1.5%. So your average commission per transaction is 37.50. So if there's anyone on Teams, that's where you make that adjustment. I get that question a lot. All right. So here comes that triangle again, guys. And we're going to talk about the importance of appointments. So this is actually in your book, starting on page 3.7. And you can write at the top where it says 3 drivers of the economic model are listing appointments, appoints to agreement, and appoint to close transactions. But I added in this little slide. So you can write this down. This is, again, Jenny Mosier version of the Business Planning Clinic. And what I want you to understand is at the top of this triangle, right, where it says leads generated, there is something that happens in between the lead getting generated and the closing that takes place down at the bottom here. And that's an appointment. How many of you tracked your appointments last year? Can you raise your hand? Thank you, Katie. Excellent. Katie tracked our appointments. Because Katie has to, because she's got a lot of accountability around those appointments, guys. And I can tell you that if you do one thing out of this entire business planning clinic, and that one thing is starting to track your appointments, you have to know how many you need. We're going to get there. But you start tracking your appointments, your whole world changes. And I'm going to explain why. The appointments that occur in this triangle are the lead indicator for how your business will turn out. And it's one of the things you can actually control. So the way I always define an appointment, because before we can start tracking something, we have to know what it is, right? So I say the definition of an appointment has 3 elements to it. The first is that it's in person, right? Or if it's a Zoom, if necessary, but basically it's not a phone conversation, right? It's not an email. It's not a text message exchange. It's an in-person meeting between you and a client, all right? The second thing is there's a clear goal. And the goal is to get an agreement signed. So if you're walking into an appointment that's maybe a listing consultation, a listing appointment, and you're just going there to basically give them ideas on how to update their house because they want to sell it one day, that's not really an appointment, unless it shifts in the middle, of course. But understand that the appointment is so that you are going to sign a client. The reason I make this point is because oftentimes, I have my agents. So I managed anywhere from 8 to 10 agents at a time. And they track their appointments on a weekly basis. Now, when I talk to them Monday on their 411 calls, I would say, hey, Hannah, how many appointments did you have last week? And she'd be like, well, I met with this one buyer, and then, I had coffee with my girlfriend. And I'm like, coffee with your girlfriend? Is she looking to buy a home? She will one day. Hannah, that's not an appointment, girlfriend, right? That's a really great conversation, but that's not an appointment. If your friend didn't know you were there with the potential of whipping out a buyer brokerage agreement, that's not an appointment. So both parties got to be on the same page about why you're there, to list their house or to pick them up as a buyer client. And then the third is an appointment equals an opportunity for a closing. So down at the bottom, you'll see that 1 appointment per closing opportunity. So that means if you walk into someone's house and they want to list, but they also need to buy, that's 2 appointments. But your appointment must be able to result in a closing in order for it to be considered an appointment. For instance, if you go meet with one investor and he's got 5 properties he wants to sell, or he wants to buy 5 properties over the next, 3 to 6 months, that's actually 5 appointments in one, because it's 5 opportunities for closings. is 5 opportunities for closings. Now, if you're just meeting with a singular buyer and they just need to buy, that's 1 appointment. So that's how you count them. So that's what they are and how they're counted. Okay, so why does it matter? Well, the appointments start on this beautiful little triangular chart. So we have the leads generated at the top. Now, this goes back to the fact that there's 2 sides of our business. There's the listing side and there's the buyer side. So on the listing side, you lead generate to get an appointment. That's the goal. And the appointment is going to look like those 3 things. Okay. So you get the appointment, and your goal, as we already discussed, when you walk in, is to get the listing agreement signed, to take the listing. But the model, which again is, theory, but is based in fact, suggest is that every time you go on a listing appointment, the percentage of time that you're going to get a listing agreement signed or take the listing, maybe not right there at that very second, but within, a few days they agree to list with you, is about 75%. So you walk in 4 houses, you're walking out of 3 with a signed listing agreement. That's what the model suggests. Some people think that number is high, some people think it's low. That depends on your quality of appointment. If you're going on a bunch of database appointments, this probably seems a little bit low. If you're calling FSBOs and expireds, this is like hallelujah, right? So it depends on your quality of appointment, but you can't know what your conversion rate is unless you're tracking it. And the first thing you have to track is that you actually went on an appointment. Okay. So next, after you have the seller listing taken, so I've taken the listing, there's another conversion point, and that's to actually getting it to sell. According to the model, which takes averages across many, many years, it says that when you actually take the listing and you put it on the market, about 70% of the time it sells. That probably seems a little low to you guys right now, huh? Yeah, it's because we're in a hyper sellers market. So that number can go up, 85, 90, maybe even 95% of the homes that you put on the market will sell. But the reason that number is so low historically is because that involves a conversation that a lot of us like to avoid around pricing and then price reductions. So as the market starts to level out, you'll notice that that conversion rate will start to go down. And the best way that you can keep it up is to work on your skill of pricing and price reduction conversations. Now, the conversion appointment before that, the listing appointment to the listing taken, if that number's low, let's say you start tracking it and you're like, gosh, I'm only getting like 50% of the listings I'm going on. That's where you need to work on your listing presentation, right? That's where you need to get better skilled in those scripts. But you can't know where you need help if you're not tracking it at both conversion points. So then when you go to the buy side and you look, it's very similar story here, but that's when you go and you have a buyer appointment and you get the buyer brokerage agreement signed, about 70% of the people you meet with sign with you. When I was a buyer's agent and I first started coaching, what kind of more high level, and I started tracking all these numbers, I was so proud of myself because my buyer to buyers taken was like 95%. And I was just so proud of it. I told my coach, mine is 95%. And he told me I wasn't going on enough appointments. I wasn't getting enough at bats. That was a bit too high. It wasn't within range. It didn't make me good. It made me not take chances, right? So the reason these benchmarks are there is so that you can say, okay, am I way above or way below? And what do I need to do about it? Because everything can be fixed with skill. Okay, and then from your buyer listings taken, about 70% of the time they buy a home. Now, on this side of things, that could be lower right now due to the market. These bottom two are very market driven, so keep that in mind. But at the bottom, maybe right now buyers are getting exhausted and they're saying, forget it, we'll just wait until next year, and they're not buying. It might not be anything, that has to do with you, just like the listing selling don't, but you can improve it. You can improve it based on your skill, or you can at least be aware of it and understand that you can compensate for it. And all of those things equal closings. So once they sell or the buyer, then you get your income, you get your commission. And so if you're not tracking how many appointments you're going on, then I beg of you to start. You say, well, Jenny, what do I just start writing them down? Well, no, we're going to set a goal around how many appointments you need to go on based on the information that we've just covered so that you can pay attention to it and focus on it. All right. So now we're going to look at this big economic model again. I told you this was at the very front of this chapter, but here at the back end, it's going to make a little bit more sense because we've gone over some definitions and we've learned about conversion rates and we've talked about our average commission amount. So let's take a look. So at the top here is our net income. Now, when we discussed this earlier, we said that your gross closed income minus your operating expenses minus your cost of sale equaled your net income. That GCI and net income were flip-flopped. But the way the model actually works is you start with your profit. So that $100 million up there, that's the goal. Because it doesn't really matter how much GCI you have. If you're not making a profit, then you're not really running a business. So when we do this exercise with you guys, we're going to start with writing down your net income goal. Okay, so in this case, for a millionaire real estate agent, because again, this is the model, this doesn't apply to all of you in the same way, but it's $1 million is the goal of a net income. Then you add back in your operating expenses, which again, for a big team is about 30% of their GCI. I mean, that's a lot of money going out, $750,000. And then you're adding back in their cost of sale, which again is very big because you have a lot of agents on the teams helping you sell houses. And you add those three numbers together and you get 2.5 million in total GCI. You with me so far? We go through this 3 more times. So if you're not catching it the first time, just hang with me. As the numbers change, it'll probably start coming together. Now, this average commission amount comes from the average across the United States, which is $71.50 per transaction. So you take that 2.5 million in GCI and you follow the math problem, divided by 7150 equals 350 units sold. So to make $1 million, you got to sell 350 houses according to this process. Okay. From there, it's broken down on the sell side and the buy side. So the first number, the 50%, represents that 50% of this millionaire real estate agent's business comes from sellers and 50% comes from buyers. I can tell you from experience, most people's businesses are not a perfect 50-50 business, okay? They're either buyer heavy or seller heavy. So recognize that and look at those numbers for your business. All right, but in this case, let's start on the seller side. 50%, half of their deals of the 350 came from sellers. So they had to sell 175 total listings. Now here come those conversion rates, that's 70 and 75%. So to sell 175, they had to take 250, because 70% of that is 175. To take 250, they had to meet with 333 sellers in a year, where they got 75% of them to take 250. I'm going back up. At a 70% conversion rate, they got 175 sold, which goes towards their big goal of the 350. And you do the same thing on the buy side. You just follow the math equation all the way down. And for this team, that means they have to go on 7 listing appointments a week, and they have to go on 7 buyer appointments a week. Okay? Can one person do that? No. They can try, but they're going to get burned out. They're not going to assist their client. They're not going to take care of their clients very well, and they're going to get burned out. So that's why this model, this big model of netting a million, is set up for multiple people to do it. So let's take a look at another example. This is the $500,000 example. Okay. So maybe this is an agent who wants to make $500,000 a year. Their operating expenses are less, $375. Their cost of sale is less. Maybe they don't have a listing agent. They just have a couple buyer's agents, right? Their cost of sale is $375. You add those 3 numbers together, 500,000 plus 375 plus 375 equals 1.25 in total GCI in order to have a net income of 500,000. Following me? This person's average commission rate is 68.75. So you take the 1.25 million divided by 68.75. They need to sell 182 units to reach their goal. Now, in this instance, their seller listings are 40% of their business, and their buyer listings are 60% of their business. That's the number at the top. They have a little bit different conversion rates. So here on the listing side, their appointment to conversion rate is higher than average. Okay. So of their 182 total units sold right at the top there, if 40% of them are sellers, that's 73 seller listings sold. They divide that by 70% conversion rate. They need to take 104. They divide that by the 80% appointment conversion rate. They need to go on 130 seller appointments a year in order to take 104, sell 73, that contribute towards their big goal of 182. On the buy side, that's 60, accounts for 60% of their business. So they have to sell 109, they have to close 109 buyers. Their sold to conversion rate's a bit lower. It's a tough market. So they have to get 168 buyer agreements signed in order to sell 109. And their appointment to conversion rate is normal, it's 70%. And so they have to meet with 240 buyers to take 168 buyer brokerage agreements, whatever you call them, buyer agreements. And then 109 of those are actually going to close. So that's 3 a week on the seller side, 5 a week on the buy side. So a team like this probably has the Rainmaker as a listing agent, because you can go on 3 appointments a week, no problem. And maybe it's them plus a buyer's agent or 2 buyer's agents going on 5 appointments a week. All right, we're going to do one more, and this should catch more of your attention. So this is when we're looking at a net income of $150,000. So we've been talking really big numbers, but I always like to bring this in because most agents in my class, maybe this isn't the exact number you're looking for, but it's more in the range of what you're looking at on a yearly basis, because many people are individual agents. They're not at the level that they're building MREA teams. So there's a couple of changes here I want you to make sure you note. And this is, we're about to walk through your guys' example. And at the top there, the net income, $150,000. These operating expenses are not 30% of that GCI. They're lower. This is a 1-person team. They don't have an admin. They're using office space inside the building. Their expenses just aren't super high. They're able to keep their expenses at about $30,000 a year. Okay? Then their cost of sale is just their cap. And I put in here 20,000. I don't know what it is for you guys there. It usually ranges somewhere between $18,000 and $24,000 a year. But that's your cap plus your royalty. So this agent, they don't have buyer's agents and listing agents working for them at this point. So their cost of sale is just their cap. So you add those three numbers together. This is gonna be more like you guys. So you take your net income of 150, add it to your 30,000 operating expenses, add it to your 20,000 cost of sale. This total GCI is $200,000 a year in order to walk away with 150. So now we take our average commission amount, which for this person is $6,000, and you divide that. So it's 200,000 divided by 6,000 equals they need to sell 34 units a year in order to make the money they need to make. Now, in this case, the seller side of the business is 40%, the buyer side is 60%. That means they need to sell a total of 14 seller listings and a total of 25 buyers. You work backwards on the conversion rates again. So if you need to sell 14, you divide by 70%, you need to sign 19.5, whatever, 20 listing agreements. And if your conversion rate's at 75%, you need to go on 26 seller appointments a year, or 2 a month. On the buy side, you have to have a total of 20 buyers closed. 20 buyers closed. Here we go. Because it's 60% of the 34. So you have 20 buyers closed. You divide that by the 70%, which means you need 28.5 or 29 buyer agreements signed. Now, in order to get 29 buyer agreements signed with a conversion rate of 70%, you've got to meet with 41 on the year, which is 3.5 a month. So combined, it's 5.5 a month. 5.5 a month. Is that doable? Can you meet with 5 to 6 people every month to talk about real estate and to work towards a signed listing agreement? I promise you can. Yes, KD?
Sorry, I was pointing at the screen. It's not as cool as when you do it, but I was like, you know.
Yes. Okay, good. So you can meet with this many. I mean, I used to have to meet with 5 a week. That was my goal as a listing agent. It's getting the leads to go on these appointments. I understand. And that's what we talk about in the lead generation section. But you can do this. You can do this. So let's go to you guys doing it. All right. So I go to this actual next slide. I don't like this one. Okay. So the first thing you're going to write down in this example, I just pulled out what I did. I wanted a net income of 150 plus operating expenses of 30,000 plus 20,000 towards my cap, got me a total GCI. That's my average commission amount, my total number of units sold. So let's go, and I'm going to put a blank screen up here, and I want you guys to do it. So the first thing I want you to do in that top blank, which there's a number of these that you can fill out, but go ahead and go to the one on 3.5 or 3.17, whichever one. They're both blank. And by the way, in the back of this book is a toolkit with more blank ones, so you can continue to play with these numbers. But go to 3.15 or 3.17, and at the top there, I want you to write down your net income goal for the year. And as you write down this net income goal, I don't want you to just write down what you need, right? Go back to our mindset conversation. Maybe double it. You can go back and adjust it down later, but just for our example right now, just for today, just for this moment that we're all in together, write down a big number. A number that you're like, oh, I only got about a 50-50 shot of hitting that thing, but I'm going to write it down. Because writing it down at least moves you towards your goal. Moves you towards your goal. So write down your net income number. Okay, everybody feel good? Next, I want you to write down your operating expenses. Well, Jenny, I don't know what they are. Okay, didn't think you did. Give it an educated guess is why you're here. That's okay. So this could be basically what I tell people to do in this section is to kind of just run through your head really quickly. What are your biggest monthly expenses for your business? So, you know, if you pay a MAPS coach, if you have office dues, whatever you pay your office, if you have to pay any sort of additional fees per month, what's your marketing cost, your cell phone, those sorts of things, and just quickly do, because again, you're going to have to go back and do and find this more relevant number. But take that number that your monthly expenses times it by 12, because there's 12 months in a year, and write down your yearly operating expenses. And if you don't know that number, then in your first year, you're probably looking at around $15,000 to $20,000, and beyond that is going to depend. But give yourself some room to grow and spend money on your business. Then, in the third, cost of sales, if you don't have any listing agents or buyer's agents who work for you, I want you to just write down your cap here. So whatever that is, your cap plus royalty. Now add those three numbers together to get your total GCI. Okay, once you have your GCI, everybody have your GCI? Give me a, you're getting there? Once you have your GCI, I want you to write down your average commission amount. Average commission amount. So that's the number we worked on when I told Katie to talk to you guys about it when we paused a little bit ago. What's your average commission amount? And then take your GCI, divide it by your average commission amount, and give me your total units sold. And Katie, if you'll take everybody off mute, I'd like to hear a few of their total units sold goals.
Just shout them out when you have it. Just say space.
51 to 19.
51.
51, perfect. Who else?
80.
80. Who else? We know these are big numbers. I asked you to put you in a stretch goal in there. What is it?
Well, it's based on it's based on your net income. So we got 37.
37. Perfect. We're going to go into a break in about 5 minutes, and I want you guys to make sure you have at least this number. Like, this is the number I need you to come out of here with, is this total unit sold and then your total appointment number. So if you don't have it, I've failed you completely. And a lot of the times people kind of zone out. You start trying to work it before I've gone to it and you miss it. So you'll have time during the break to go back through. Okay, now once you have your unit goal, these blue numbers in here, these are the numbers where that you put in your conversion rates. Now, if you don't know them, then I'm going to need you to go with the model numbers, which are the 70, 75, 70, and 70. And then if your business is 50-50 buyers, sellers, you can put 50-50. I find most people it's 60 on the buy side, 40 on the seller side. So I just threw those in there for examples, but you can change those. But I want you to take your total units sold. So in my case, I used 50 total units sold. And when I did that, and I follow it down, so I have on the sell side, 40% of my units are coming from sellers, so that's 20. And my conversion rate of 70%, I need to take about 29 listings, which means I need to meet with 38. So I have 38 appointments to sign 29 listings to sell 20 of them. On the buy side, I need to sell 30 buyers. So I have to get 43 buyer agreements signed. I have to meet with 61 people. I divide my appointments needed by 12 months. You can divide it by week or divide it by month, whatever. But the annual is 38 sellers and 61 buyers. And so 3 sellers a month and 5 buyers a month, which total 8. So 2 a week. So I go 2 appointments a week, 2 appointments a week, 2 appointments a week, 2 appointments a week. And that will help me reach my 50 units sold. But you got to track it. So I would love to know, as you guys are working out your math, how many buyer seller appointments are you going on per month in order to meet your goal? And remember, this is your big goal. Like, this is a stretch goal.
You know, share?
Well, because my unit sold was the same, so it's one each per month, so two a week. I mean, 2 a week.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So 2 a week. So you got to do
Right.
What'd you say? She asked me something. She asked something.
Was it 2 a week or 2 a month?
2 a week.
2 a week, 8 a month total.
Okay, perfect. Which will probably get you around 50 units sold, right? Who else? I know it feels like accountability. It feels weird. Just say it. You'll feel better. I'm going to sit here awkwardly till somebody tells me their goals. Because I love you. Do your math, work it out. Let me know. What do your weekly or monthly goals look like for appointments? I'd like a couple more people to share.
Does anybody have questions?
You very, very, very well have questions.
Again, she said if you don't have numbers, you just use the model numbers.
That's right. Use the blue, what I have in there. Anyone else come up with their numbers yet?
2 and 5.
2 and 5.
5.
Thank you. Sweet. 2 and 5. 2 sellers, 5 buyers. Awesome.
And then you'll add those numbers. Okay, I just did. It's 250. Okay. And you're going to divide 250. What you got there?
The average into the GCI.
Yes. Yes.
So you know, it's 34 and the 5 was.
And then you divide that, you do the either 60 or 40 or 50, whatever. Then you break it out listings and buyers. After you get your units, you figure out how many of those are listings and how many are buyers. So that's where it's percentage based. They have to split it out.
Per month.
That's what I
And 60, 40,
Well, not you though, because you're more listing based.
yeah,
I mean, you can do that math, but just really looking at where you're at, you know, actually you probably flip flop. I mean, it's the same math. So if you're gonna have 100 units sold, you're gonna do 5 and 3, basically, or 6 and 10.
there you go, 6 and 10. So it is now.
Anybody else? Why not do 100? You're 80. Let's just do 100. What's 20 more units?
Sure. Double that is.
Anybody else? 3 and 2. Boom.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. So here's what I would recommend all of you do. These total seller appointments, total buyer appointments, whatever that is, go to this store. Buy a big poster board. Do not cut it in half. Turn it lengthwise. At the one side, the top side, write buyers, and the other side, write sellers, and number down your board how many appointments you need to go on. So, on my board here, for my 50 units sold, on the seller, it would say sellers, it would be numbered down 1 through 38. And then on the other half of the board, buyers would be numbered down 1 through 61. Pre-number them. This has to do with putting out into the universe, if you will, what it is you want. And then as you go on appointments, go back and write in the name next to space number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put tally marks at each month so you know if you're on track. If you went on a buyer and a listing appointment all at the same time, then on one side fill in the buyer and one side fill in the listing. But start tracking these numbers down your board and focus on this. What we focus on expands. We all know that from Bold. So as you focus on these appointment goals, they will translate back to your closed goals. They just do. And every year that I hit my appointment goal, I hit my closing goal. And every year I missed my appointment goal, I missed my closing goal. This is something that you can control a bit more. This is something that you can track on a weekly basis. Closings are tough, right? Closings can get pushed out. Closings can fall apart. Closings happen. But appointments you can control and you can keep track of very easily on a weekly basis so that if you're way off track, you know it today. Not in November, today. And it's also a great pipeline tool to go back and look and say, who did I meet with? What do I need to, have they signed an agreement? Are they not going to buy anymore? And you can mark through them. But focus on your appointment number. Now I'm going to stop sharing this because I have a gift for you guys as we go into break. Okay, hold on. I don't want to end. I just want to change what I'm sharing. Okay, so now I want to share something else. I will tell Katie where to find this for you guys. I'll send you the link for it. But I think you're going to like this. Do you see what's on my screen? So in here is an Excel chart that's already built out for you by Keller Williams, and you can fill in your total net income, 150,000, and okay, my expenses are 25,000, and my cost of sales 20,000, and my average commission is 5,400. So I need to sell 36 units. I can 50% of my business. Nope, it's actually 60% of my business is listings and 40% is buyers. And it makes these adjustments for you. So you know how many appointments you need to go on per month. So I know I just made you do a lot of math and it feels like it wasn't for very much, but here's the thing. Understanding the why behind it is very important. Understanding what the conversion rates are, how to do the math is not that important, right? We have calculators for that. But understanding why we need to do this is important. And as your team grows bigger, you can compare your percentages to the MREA percentages and what these numbers would look like if you were following the model exactly. Okay? Great little tool. I'll send it to Katie so that she can send it out to everyone. And we're going to take a quick, let's see here. So in y'all's world, it's 1:54. So let's come back at like 2:05, 10-minute break, and we will round out. So I will be back. I'm going to pause my stuff and I'll be back in 10 minutes. All right, friends, we'll come on back. Right. Any ahas, anything you want to share coming out of the break? Get my Diet Coke fix here. I buy the little baby cans to keep me accountable. See? Then I won't drink a whole one. All right, let me pull my slides back up, guys. And if you guys have questions or anything you want to share coming out of this break, you go ahead and just let me know. Raise your little digital hand as I'm sharing my screen. All right. These take a second again to pull up. 1 second. Okay, the only weird thing about this is because of the way this works, I have to scroll back through my slides once I end it. Okay, you guys made it through. You made it through the hardest part of the math, the economic model. You now know how many appointments you need to go on, and you have a system for tracking those appointments. And again, if you did nothing else out of this class, which I'd like for you to do a number of things, maybe 3 or 4, if you do nothing else, just getting in that habit of starting to track your appointments, your business will change, and you can watch it and you control it. And it's very nice to have something that you can focus on that isn't some big pie in the sky number at the end of the year that you aren't sure how you're going to get there. And to be honest, what most people find is these numbers are very attainable. They're very attainable, but you have to focus on them to hit them. And if you're not paying attention to them and you're just letting your business happen to you, business plan of hope, that's where we get off track. So we are going to head now into the lead gen model. So you're like, okay, Jenny, now I know how many appointments I need to get. Where do they come from? How do I get them? So the lead gen model starts section 4 of your book. Oh, by the way, in your book, I didn't touch on this because I showed you the cool thing with the Excel chart, but on 3.19, you'll see an example of where they filled out the economic model into 411 example, which is great. So at the top, you have your net income goal, your units sold, listing and buyer appointments. And on monthly, you're going to have your listing appointment and your buyer appointment. And then weekly, how many listing and buyer appointments are you going on? So that's how you keep track of that. That's on 319, 3.19. And as we move through the course, it'll add on the lead gen and budget model. Okay. So go ahead and turn to section number 4 for me, and let's talk about the lead generation model. This is where if I'm teaching this in person, we come back from lunch. We always come back from a break after this. And to get your attention, I tell you that you're going to pick up your phone and make 50 dials to people, and then you can leave once we're done. But I'm only kidding. It just gets your attention because people have a connotation attached to the word lead generation that I am determined to squash. People think of lead generation oftentimes as only taking that phone and dialing contacts. And I think of it as many other things. And once you as an agent have figured out what's your favorite couple of methods of lead generation and you go deep on those methods of lead generation, things really change for you. And that's honestly what this section is about. There is some math at the end that helps us calculate how many people we need in our database to reach our appointment goal. But more than anything, this is about the idea of lead generation and how we can be better at it and not be doing things that don't come naturally to us. So there are two types of lead generation, okay? Prospecting based lead generation and marketing based lead generation. And here's that silly old triangle again. So what we know is that the big side of the triangle, sometimes it's the base, sometimes it's the top, but the big side of the triangle is the most important side, right? It's like funnel. So in this case, prospecting is on the big side of the triangle. And prospecting means that our business should be prospecting based, but we have to understand what prospecting based means. So in the example here, it says that an example of prospecting is something that's time intensive, proactive, and gives you immediate results. So examples of these, and I'm sure you're thinking of some in your head, but I'll say them because we're on Zoom and it makes it more complicated. So this is going to be door knocking, right? This does sometimes look like cold calling. This is having conversations with the people in your database. The way you know you're prospecting and not just marketing is because you're being told no to your face, practically, right? Or voice to voice. You can be told no when you're prospecting, which is why so many people shy away from it, because we don't like being told no. It doesn't feel very good to get rejected, right? So we avoid it at all costs. When the truth is, a no is just another no on a way to a yes. And if we can't get past some no's, we can't get any yeses. And if you change the way you look at things, things you look at change, right? If I told you all right now to pick up your phone, and for every person who told you that they didn't want to buy a house, I would give you $100. Would you all pick up your phone and start dialing right now? Uh-huh. Yep, you bet you would. And here's the crazy part. A few dials in, maybe it's 8 dials in, maybe it's 50 dials in, but eventually someone would go, oh yeah, I do need to buy actually a home this year. And I'll say, I'm not going to give you any money for that one, right? Because you're going to earn a commission on that one. That's way more than any of the no's that came through. Or maybe I say, okay, you can earn $6,000 from this says yes, but you got to give me back all the $100 bills from all the no's. You would still take that deal because it'd be more money, guys. There's gold in your database. There's gold in these phone calls. There's gold in prospecting. Every door you knock on for a no, there's a yes to follow it. We just hate the no so bad, we don't go look for the yes. But having a prospecting based business, especially as the market shifts, especially as we move towards something that doesn't look like what we've lived in for the past 18 months, you're going to be grateful that you have a prospecting based business. Now, prospecting based doesn't just mean getting on the phone or knocking on strangers' doors. Oftentimes, this actually means getting in touch with the people we already know. For a lot of people, prospecting lead generation is like going to church, right? And talking to people there. You're already there. You already like doing it. It's part of lead generation. For some of you, it's going to your kids' soccer games. And instead of sitting in a seat alone, you get there a little bit early and chat with some of the parents along the way and get to know them or solidify some relationships. For some of you, this is a group that you love to be a part of, maybe your workout group, maybe a book club. That's prospecting too. That's lead generation too. Recognize that lead gen isn't just this. It can be whatever you want it to be, but what is it that you like to do? Where do your results come from? Keep running that through your head as we're talking. Now, the other type of lead gen is marketing based. So those are going to be more money, a bit passive, but have more long-term results. So it's kind of like branding, right? So you put a billboard up and a million people drive by it and every one of them said no, but you didn't feel it, right? They didn't say no to your face. They didn't say no in your ear, right? Or you send out a mailer and they throw it in the trash can with barely looking at it. It's a no, but you didn't feel it. But you had to pay money to get it into their hands. That's marketing. It's passive, it's long term, it's more about branding. It's about making people feel like they know you, they're familiar with you, they're familiar with your brand. But so that when you prospect, it works. So the best type of a business is prospecting based, marketing enhanced. So what this might look like, people tell me, "Oh, Jenny, I sent my mailer out to the farm, but it didn't work." Well, did you just send a piece of paper out a few times? Like, no, that's not going to work. But how about, did you hold a listing open in that neighborhood? Did you door knock and let them know about the multiple offer situation? Did you circle prospect around your new listing when you sent out your mailer? You do both of those, you will get results. You combine these things, you get results. Social media marketing, because it's passive. It might not be very money intensive, but you put yourself out there on social media and you make offerings to people, but they're not going to write underneath. They're like, "We don't want your business," right? They just don't use it. Don't use you. Okay. But you follow that up. You use your social media platform to put yourself out there, to let people know you're an agent, to provide information, to send them, to somewhere else. And then as you call your database, or you text your database, or you see people out and you're doing the prospecting piece of the face-to-face asking for business, then that marketing of the social media has done its job and it's laid the groundwork for the prospecting. It makes it easier. So what in your world, how are you lead generating? What are you doing that's getting you results? I do want to mention on the top of your page 4.0, there's some new lingo, lead and contact. A lead is what we used to call a haven't met. That means it's someone who you have their information and you're marketing to them, or you're trying to get in touch with them, but you haven't received that two-way communication yet. And then a contact is someone in which you've received two-way communication. We use those terms now because that's what they call them in command, but they're basically mets and haven't mets. I just wanted to point that out. It's not overly important, but when we say lead, it means one-way contact. When we say contact, we mean two-way. Met. There's a rule of 4 in real estate that comes up that says, it's sort of like the 80-20 rule really. And what it says is that a majority of your business comes from 2 to 4 lead sources. Would you guys say that's true for your businesses? If you're closing less than 20 or 30 deals a year, this is probably true for you. If you get into like 50 deals a year, you may have 3 top lead sources, and over 100, you'll have 4, but it kind of stalls out there. The biggest businesses with thousands of closings still only have this definite rule of 4 going into place, where a majority of their closings come from the same lead sources. And what I find to be so a little bit counterintuitive, funny, is that in your book, you guys have this page, the lead generation activities, where it lists all the different ways you can lead generate. It's okay if you don't, because I like to read them because it makes a point. So here's how you can lead generate. Let's see here. You can do FSBOs, expireds, apartment complexes, builders, banks, booths and kiosks, walks and referral network, past clients, your sphere, your seminars, maybe SEO, TV, grocery carts, moving vans, blogs, news releases, advice columns, just sold, just listed cards. There's 1,000,001 ways we can lead generate, guys. So many ways that we can lead generate. And what I find the pitfall that so many of us go into is the fact that we're kind of like flavor of the month, right? We're like, I lead generate like this, right? Whatever this is. And then you go to a class and somebody talks about how they got all these leads doing an open house. And you're like, ooh, I can do that. I'm going to go do that. Right. And then you go and the next weekend you hold an open house and you come back and somebody comes and they're like selling some sort of internet situation. You're like, just a tiny investment. Maybe I'll do that. Right. Oh, just listed for this one listing. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to send out a bunch of postcards. We're squirrels, right? We're all the time, instead of focusing on what we know works and going deep in that, which is actually what the most successful agents do. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be looking for other lead generation sources. I recognize that that's a good thing to do. But the best place to start is to go look at where your closings already come from. Where do they come from? For a lot of people, it's your database or referrals from your database. But dig down on that a little bit deeper. Where? Is it your neighborhood? Is it your church? Is it your social media page? Where are they coming from? And go deeper instead of wider. Okay, so an example of this is Leslie Peters. I worked on a team called the Peters Company. Leslie Peters is the wife of the team, and she decided she was going to go all in on Facebook. And so she created a system around it. And this started years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And every morning when she woke up, she would comment on 5 people's posts. She would DM 5 people and she would like 5 people's comments. And then she did like a happy birthday, wishing whoever's birthday it was that day. And then she posted 5 times a week, 3 to 4 personal, 1 to 2 real estate, kind of depending on what was going on. She took over the top spot of the algorithm for Facebook. I mean, if you're friends with Leslie Peters, if she's posted, she's at the top of your page because Facebook recognizes her as a great algorithm, right? And pushes her to the top. And she follows along and she knows who's getting engaged and she knows whose dogs died and she knows everything about people because she pays attention on social media and she lead generates around that. She created a system around something she already liked doing and that she was already getting results from. Whatever you're going to do, you must do consistently and systematically to get big results. So, how can you go deep instead of wide? Instead of adding on 5 more lead generation sources this year for 2022, how can you create a better system around what you're already doing well? Do you have a true 36 touch program that you're sending to your database if deals are coming from your database? Are you really calling everyone every quarter? And do you have a system to remind you to do that you're doing consistently? Not just when you think of it, consistently. And here's the other thing. I know you because I know me and I'm a human. You are not going to do something on a consistent basis that you don't like to do or that you're scared to do. You just won't. You'll quit. You'll stop. You might do it for a little bit because somebody wants you to, but you're going to stop. And you can't find success in lead generation with that mindset. So your real goal is not to worry about how many calls Jenny is going to ask you to make. Your real goal is to decide where are you doubling down this year and how are you going to do it and what's your plan for that? Because if you tell me I want to work open houses and that's my thing, then go work them. And you work that open house 7 days a week because you start the day that the week before where you say, okay, this is the house I'm going to hold, and you start posting about it and you put out signs and you pull comps and you understand it. And you don't just show up on Sunday to work the open house. You've been working it for the 5 days prior to, getting people in the door and understanding the neighborhood and previewing properties and inviting neighbors. What are you already good at? Where are you already getting results? And go deeper on that because that's what the rule of 4 tells us to do. All right, here we are with our funnel. This funnel, I'm going to go up here so I can point to things. Hold on. Okay, this funnel says that we capture our leads, right? That's the first thing we do in real estate is we capture our leads through our prospecting and marketing, and they funnel into our database, which is this big drum And this is where they're split into two groups, leads and contacts. The leads we're trying to create a relationship with. The contacts we're strengthening relationships with. Then as they spin around in this drum for a really long time, right? Often they're just people who live in our database who we're strengthening relationships with or getting into relationships with until they pop out for stage 3 down there, which is preparing them for a conversation, right? That's the appointment. That's getting them to the appointment. But the best way to do that, the best way to get someone to an appointment is to provide them with the information they need and to see you as their trusted real estate advisor. So if you're not staying in touch with them, if you're not providing with the information that they see as valuable, they're going to get it from somewhere. And so your job is to cultivate these leads until it's time for them to pop out into an appointment. Then you capture them and then you turn them into new repeat clients or referrals. And then they close and they pop back up on the top of the loop and they swim around again for a number of years till it happens again, right? It's all about staying in touch with people, because when they know how to get in touch with you and you've made that easy, and they have permission to get in touch with you, right? You've shown them, like, I want your business, I'm here for you and your referrals, then they will reach out. If they can't easily find your information, they don't know who you are, which happens to a lot of people, or you haven't been providing them with information that they need all along, then they're going to reach out to someone else, right? So are your lead generation efforts to your database and to your leads giving them what they need based on who they are? This suggests the keys to success are communicating with everyone in your database with frequency, which we talked about, consistency, getting permission. The more people who are like, yep, we want to opt into your business, the better. And then giving them value that's relevant to them. So this is where Command comes into play, or any other CRM that allows you to tag people, because not everyone in your database is the same. You probably have investors in your database. You have, people buying that want to downsize, people buying their first home, right? And when you can segment these people and give them the information that they need, then they're much more likely to connect that information and connect the dots with you and to work with you. Because when we just blanket everybody into the same category, it's not as effective. It can work, it's just not as effective, right? It's the whole reason we each have our own Netflix login, because they know how they can get in touch with each individual person. They know that this is what matters to, the husband, and this is what matters to the wife, and this is what matters to the kids. This is why now, thankfully, when I open my Netflix, Baby Shark isn't the first thing that comes on, because I created a profile for my children. I like it. And that's the same thing we can do with our database. But I want to challenge you on this, that even though we need to segment our database, not everyone is equal in our database. So focusing on your core advocates, if you're only going to create one segment of people and you're like, Jenny, it's too much for me to figure out who's first-time homebuyers, who's downsizing, who's investing. Okay, fine. But if you're only going to segment one group of people here, my challenge to you is to pull out your core advocates. Usually these are going to be people who already refer you or your past clients. Don't mistake these for people who are going to buy next year, or your mom. My mom's never sent me a referral. She only lives 45 minutes from here. Don't get me started. But be thinking of the people who send you referrals and have worked with you. Those are your core advocates. Separate that group and really focus in on them, right? Give them kind of the VIP experience. Make sure you wish them a happy birthday personally. Make sure that if something big happens in their life, you send out a gift. Make sure that you know their kids' names. If you run into them, then you can, speak to that. And there's probably only going to be, say, 25 of these people in your whole database, but figure out who they are and go deep in relationship with them when it comes to your database lead generation, and understand that everyone is not created equal in your database. Now, To make it possible to communicate with everyone in your database, there's 3 different ways you can do it. The first is a plan called 19 to connect. The second is called 1 to submit. And the third is your 36 to convert. These are great. These are fine. I know you're not going to do both of these plans though. Okay. Here's the great news. Do you see how, let me move myself over. Do you see how on both the 19 and the 36 plan, there's 4 phone calls? Great. Easy. So you've already got that down. Of the touches, there's 26 emails in the 36 to convert, and there's 12 in the 19 to connect. So how about you just create the 136 touch program and then just add those people into 12 of the emails. On this plan, there's 2 events or get-togethers. Well, on that plan, there's 1. So just invite those people to one of these events, right? And as far as your promotional items go, so these are things that you can mail out. These are football magnet calendars or whatever it is. Over here, it's 4 touches, and over there, it's just 2. So just include them on 2 of these. Don't recreate the wheel. Create one powerful 36 touch plan and add these people to it. And as you get more of their contact information, as you solidify relationships with them, then add them to more of the plan. But don't overcomplicate this and create 2 totally different plans, because it just won't get done, because unless you have a full-time marketing person, it's just too much to do. But you can create one really killer 36 touch program and add your leads to it. Now, what I find really great is this middle section here, this 1 to submit. So if you've been with Keller Williams for any length of time, you've heard of a plan called an 8x8 or a 7x7, 7 to submit. And this is the idea that when you meet someone and you want to add them to your database, you hit them with 8 touches, 1 a week, boom, 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 for 7 or 8 weeks in a row. Not only is that difficult and expensive, but I think it can come off a little bit stalkerish, especially if you've just met them somewhere like a book club. And so I do think it's effective for, expireds and FSBOs and people that you do need to call multiple times before they know who you are. But we're talking about your database. We're talking about people who you met, who you want to add to your Met database. The research has shown that it really just takes 1 high value touch in order to do this. So if you have had a great phone conversation with someone, or had a great connecting conversation at the PTO meeting, or gone to coffee with a new friend, or contributed to someone's charity and shown up for them in some way, they remember who you are, and you can add them to your database without having to send them 7 or 8 pieces of marketing first. The reason you did that in the beginning is so they wouldn't unsubscribe. They wouldn't go, Jenny Mosier, who's that? Why am I getting her stuff? Take me off your list, right? So you would say, oh, let me tell you who I am 8 times so you don't forget me. Well, that in itself may make them say, take me off your list. But I do agree that 1 high value touch solidifies a relationship. So is this sending a $5 Starbucks gift card after you've met someone and you're like, hey, can I grab your address? And then you send them a $5 Starbucks gift card, they call, say thank you, and you add them to your database because you got their address, right? So what kind of high value touches can you make with people when you're adding them to your database? They just need to know who you are. They need to know who you are. Not be confused about who you are. Until they know who you are, don't just throw them in your database. Build the relationship. Okay, so let's keep rolling. Okay, normally here we stop and do a little mastermind around ideas for events. For time's sake, I'm just going to give you guys a few examples of things that you can do that don't cost a ton of money. One great one that's coming up right now is a pie event. You go buy pies, like pumpkin pies, apple pies, whatever. Email to your database, let them know that there's 20 free pies available, or however many you want to give away, and they can email you back to claim your pie, right? And then the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, you either go deliver them or have them come see you in your office. But you make, and then you have an opportunity to chat with these folks in person as you give them your pie. So that's a great event that you can do for your database. Other things are to tack on to other community events that are already happening. So say your neighborhood is doing an end of school year party, right? Well, why don't you rent out an ice cream truck and have it come and give out stickers for anybody that talks to you to go get a free ice cream over at the ice cream truck. And you've told the ice cream truck, look for the sticker, take it and bill me at the end. It may cost you a couple $100s, but those conversations and relationships will come back to you tenfold. This is a great time of year, by the way, to grab people's addresses because they think you're going to send them a Christmas card. And maybe you should, right? But this is a great time to be updating your database and pruning it and making sure you have proper information as you go into 2022. A great touch that I've done for years is when I receive Christmas cards, I send a text to them, let them know I got it. And that it was so cute. It was my favorite one I've gotten. And thank you so much for sending it. And then I go into my CRM and make sure that the kids' names and ages or whatever are all updated, right? This is a great way to find out about family changes, address updates, and things like that. So consider where you are in the year and how you can use that to your advantage, and brainstorm with amongst yourselves when you have an opportunity. Okay, we're in the Legions section, so I have to mention that there is a do not call list. Do not call it. You will get in trouble. Your, to say the least, your office should have a copy of the do not call registry, so you guys can talk to Katie about that, or Adam, or whoever, and make sure that you are not calling the people on this list. If you are, get off the phone immediately. It's a big, big fine. Okay, so this is the math part of the lead generation section that I don't love, if I'm being honest, because it makes a few assumptions that kind of make this a bit depressing. So I'm going to walk you through the numbers, but I'm going to tell you where there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So what the research suggests now is that if you have 500 contacts in your database, that will result in about a total of 15 plus 10, 25 appointments a year. The numbers used to be a lot better than that. And I don't know if this is the introduction of the internet. I don't know what's going on that's making this look so different, but here's how they arrived at the math. Okay, so if you have 500 contacts in your databases receiving 36 touches a year, 6% of the people in your database will buy or sell each year. And this is a rough calculation based on an ownership rate of 64%. And the statistic that on average people move every 9 to 10 years. Okay, so they're saying of all the people in your database, 6% of them are going to move. And that, so you take this is where you take the 500 times 6%, and that of the 6%, you'll convert about 50% of them to appointments. So that equals 15. Equals 15. Then you add in, if you're asking your database for referrals, about 4% will actually give you a referral. So that's the number right over there. So 500 times 4% giving you a referral, and then you convert about 50% of them. That equals 10 appointments each year. So 15 appointments each year coming out of a database of 500. I know that mega teams and I know that individuals who work their databases get better results than these. And here's why. First of all, that 6% that move, usually they're a buy and a sell. So that's actually 2 deals, right? And if it's your database and you're talking to them and you know what you're doing, your conversion rate, once they let you know that they're moving, should be higher than 50%, or you can work on it so that it could be. And same goes for your referrals. But I do think it's important to understand that there's a lot more competition. This used to look like a 12-to-2 ratio or a 6-to-1 ratio. So that would mean, hang on, actually, let me do the math on it. That out of 500 people in your database, you should get like 83 closings. And those were the numbers for years and years, and they continue to trend down. And I think that that's because people actually aren't putting them on a high value 36 touch program. Or maybe this database consists of 150 people and 350 people who's, are 3-year-old Zillow leads, right? So the quality of your database matters. And I'm a firm believer that if you really are in touch with 500 people on a 36 touch program that's consistent, systematic, and valuable to who's in it, you can absolutely still expect that 12-to-2 ratio to stand true and result in many more appointments out of your database. But you have to work it. You have to work it. So on your lead gen plan, here are your best practices, things that you have to do. I giggle. It says lead gen every day for 3 hours, or as long as it takes to achieve your appointment goal. I think that's great and wonderful. I can tell you I never did that, and I was a highly successful agent, but I did figure out what I could do. I could lead generate 3 days a week for 2 to 3 hours. I also think it's so important here to mention that it's not just about lead generation. This is about lead follow-up. Lead follow-up. Once you've worked so hard to get the lead, don't just lose them in the pool of people that you talk to every day. Focus on lead follow-up as much as you focus on lead generation. Time block for it. Of your 3 hours lead generating, spend 2 of them in lead follow-up. All right. Time block in the morning so you don't get distracted by the rest of your day. Whew, by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it is easy to not lead generate, right? Plus, I always say that we're all iPhones. We're human iPhones, and our batteries get charged overnight. And as the day goes by and we use all of our different apps and we're all, moving around and living life, our battery gets low at the end of the day. So lead generate, do your most important work when your battery is fully charged. In those 3 hours, remember to prepare, take action, and maintain. So the prepare piece here is critical. I find that most people have really great intentions around lead generating, but they don't know who to call or what to say, or they do, but by the time they plan it out, like half the day's gone and half their lead generation time has been spent. So as you plan your week, determine who am I going to call this week? And what am I going to say this week? What's my message? Am I inviting them to my pie event? Am I letting them know about a new jumbo loan rate? Am I calling all my past clients who closed last November or any November, and saying, oh, I can't believe it's been 3 years or 5 years, and make that list, as you're sitting around watching TV or whatever at night when you're not actually making your calls, so that you can be prepared and ready to go in the morning so you can knock it out. This is the same as having a morning routine. When does it start? The night before. Your lead generation practice should start the day before you're actually doing your lead generation, or the week that you're going to, for that Sunday, for the whole week of lead generation. You find that you add preparedness into this plan and you're going to be just miles ahead. Another thing to keep in mind here is that, I just lost my train of thought. That doesn't happen to me very often in this class because I'm so scripted, but I'm going to have to come back to it, guys. But the biggest thing here is to stay consistent in your lead generation practice and do things that you already like to do. Go deep on them. Okay, so that's lead gen. Command is a really, really, really wonderful source for this to help keep you on track. It's going to remind you of your touches. It's going to build in that plan for you. In designs, you can make beautiful pieces of marketing to send out, right? You can put in your goals. There's so many things you can leverage technology for. If you don't know about answers.kw.com, this is my second gift to you outside of the Excel sheet. This is a great, great resource for you to go to and simply type in a question and it'll tell you where to find it in Command. And it's every single thing that Command does. So from how do I log into Command to begin with, to like really complicated, things in the back end of designs and how to make those and all the different smart plans. And it will either give you a video or a step-by-step guide of how to do it. So answers.kw.com is a very helpful site. Okay, so as you pull out your lead generation model, the goals around this sheet, this section, focus in on how many contacts you need to meet the goals of your economic model. So this is about growing and feeding your database. And if you have 100 people in your database, what would it look like to have 200 in there by this time next year? And what does that mean you need to do on a monthly and weekly basis to get there? So what are your goals around adding to your database and maintaining your database? Okay, that's just as important as adding to it, is maintaining the database you have. pruning it, making sure that you have proper information, not somebody's junk email address they give everybody, right? What are your current lead generation sources? And what does your future lead generation sources look like? Are they the same but deeper? Are you going to add something in and get more consistent and systematic about it? What are they? How many contacts are you going to make per day? And then go ahead and mark out the 19 to connect touch campaign and focus on the 36 to touch campaign. And this is one of those things over the next month or so, write it out. Create a plan. Are you sending email newsletters? Create a template in MailChimp. Are you sending postcards? Create the template and design. Get it ready to go. So that's plug and play as you go throughout your year. All right. So, questions from that?
So basically, Jimmy, I just wrote down 500. How many that would be a month? Because 500 just sounds astronomical.
What is it?
It's 41.6 a month.
One a day. Yeah, because you probably already have some in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Any questions? Comments?
I think it's great. I think especially seasons agents, you forget the goal of adding to your database and you make assumptions that people are already in there. And so just the process of actually going through and pruning it and cleaning it up and making sure, not necessarily taking people out, just making sure the information in there is such a great 411 goal to have for 2022. Again, because as you reach out to them to get their updated information, that's a touch, it's a contact, guys. You do not have to ask for business every time you make a contact. You shouldn't. You should do it about every other time, but not every single time. And so these are great ways to combine all of it together and really focus in on your database if that's your thing. If your database, if you don't know anybody there in your database does not produce your leads and you don't like talking to people you know, don't make that your number one lead generation source. Go elsewhere, right? What else are you good at? And focus in on that. All right. So here we are at the budget model. So the budget model is going to tell us where and how we spend money. And a lot of this is frankly covered in the economic model, so we can move through it pretty quickly. And the fun Excel sheet, there's a fun Excel sheet for the budget and P&L too. So I will make sure that you guys get your hands on that. There's not as much math to do here. It's more just understanding the concept of where you put your money. So first thing is the difference between a budget and a P&L. So a budget is your plan, right? This is what we want to stick to. And the P&L is how's it going? If you've never budgeted for your personal life before, start there. Okay. Do you know how much it takes you to live every single month? Have you added up your mortgage plus your car payment plus your internet plus your Netflix account plus your grocery bills plus your cell phone? Do you know how much it takes you to live every month? You should. You should. It's there whether or not you pay attention to it. So you may as well pay attention to it. And then I'm going to have you translate that to your business. How much is your business per month? How much are you spending on it? Or how much are you not spending on it? You're like, I don't need a P&L. I barely spend anything on my business. Okay, what if you did? What if you invested money in your business in lead generation? What if you started saving to hire your first assistant? What would that look like? But a lot of the times, the numbers make us feel weird and we don't like it, so we put our head in the sand. Start with your personal budget. Once you've mastered that, move to your business budget. Okay. P&Ls are where you can make adjustments. So the P&L is where you say, is this working or not? Think of this as investing your money, not spending it. When you spend your money on a personal basis, it's normally like it's spent. Like it's just money you spend. But in business, when you spend money, you should expect a return on that money. And if you're not getting one within a reasonable time frame and at a reasonable rate of return, you stop spending. But you have to pay attention to it. And this is about practicing accountability, not accounting. Maybe one of you in the room is a CPA. Sometimes that's the case. People just hate being CPAs and they become real estate agents because they realize they can make great money doing it, right? And they're super into numbers. But for the majority of you, I bet you're not CPAs. So don't try to be. Understand? Just like we have, people who try to sell their houses on their own, like FSBOs, and we know how to do it best, and we can actually help them make more money. It's the same thing with the CPA. Turn a lot of your accounting over to someone else to help you manage that from a tax standpoint. You're not meant to be an accountant here. It's not what I'm telling you to do. These are the definitions we discussed in the economic model. So this is where this shows up in the slides. Okay, too late, right? We've talked about all this way back when. The fact that they put it here to me is silly. But again, as a reminder, your gross profit or your cost of, it puts in a different order, but your cost of sales is money that gets spent only when a transaction closes. Your operating expenses are money that comes out that you spend to run your business, whether or not anything closes. Your gross profit is what's left over out of your cost of sales. Your net income is when you take all of it out, and that's what you come home with, okay? Then you pay taxes. So there they are again. Ideally, 30% of your GCI goes towards cost of sales and operating expenses. But again, we've discussed this in most businesses. That's not the case. They're a little bit lower, a little bit higher, depending on what your personal business looks like. And it's okay to be off. So on this side of the screen, this is your cost of sales breakdown. So again, we're talking about listing specialists and buyer specialists. And if you don't have those, then there's no cost over here. If you do have these, it's important to go back and look and say, am I paying my buyer's agents too much? Am I paying my listing agents too much? Or am I paying them not enough? What percentage of your GCI are they getting? And how many are there? Take a look at those numbers and see how in line you are with the model. If you're way out of whack, talk to a coach about this. That's the thing. What this does is it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It means you need to pay attention to it when you're off model and say why, and then what makes sense for you. Okay. And then on the operating expense side of things, this is a breakdown. It gives you these percentages like the 14%, 9, 1, 2.5. All of this is in the Excel file I'll send you. But this is where you can plug in what your GCI is, and it will break down in percentages how much you should be spending in these categories. Again, if you're spending a little bit more in insurance or for your car or for your phone and your computers, your office supplies, that's okay. But how far off base are you? How far off base are you? If you use an accounting software like QuickBooks, it actually has this charts of accounts in there for you, ready to go, loaded up. So that, that's always an option. And again, the Excel file I send you, but this is about awareness. This is about awareness of, because even if you just know that you're spending too much money or not enough money on your business, is a really good place to start as it comes to the budget model when you're first starting to business plan. Okay. These are a breakdown of averages of those percentages. So hang on, let me move my screen so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So you recall when we looked at the 30, 30, 40, it adds this line in here that confuses everybody, this gross profit. Just ignore that for right now. So of the 2.5 million in the model we looked at in the economic model, 30% was cost of sales, 30% was operating expenses, and then down here is your $1 million, 40% profit. Okay, so that's best practices, and this breaks down across GCIs what those percentages look like on average for people making 150,000, 340,000, 649, 71.6, and 3.4 in GCI in the following categories. So again, this is where you can say, okay, I'm falling in the 150 category. Am I spending 38% in expenses? You're probably not. Guess what? Unless you have an assistant that you've hired, in which case you probably are. That cost of sales probably vary in line at 19,000. Remember that cost of sales starts to creep up as you hire agents on your team. The expenses can actually stay relatively flat. You know, you can have a lot more agents on your team and not be spending that much more money, but be bringing in more deals. So these are all about pulling different levers, but knowing where you are and having a benchmark of where you should be is really the basis of this, and having a budget to begin with. Just creating a budget for the year and checking it monthly against your P&L to make sure you're spending money in the right places. It's key. So Jenny, where do I spend money? Well, so glad you asked, because here's what that slide is. So the top two categories that you spend your money, your GCI money in, is in two places: compensation, like salaries, and lead generation, your marketing. Salaries should be the biggest category, and you should get the biggest return on your investment from a good hire. A bad hire will cost you more money than you could ever imagine, because it will cost you time. It costs your reputation, right? There's a lot of intangibles in there. So hiring the right person for this big cost center out of your business is important. And we talk about that in the next section. But a really great hire will be a huge return on your business. And then there's the lead generation, right? There's all the marketing that you do. Now, some people you can get sponsors, like from your local vendors, to help you with lead generation costs. You know, you can pair up with someone, or you're going to send out a postcard. Maybe it's you and your favorite lender, and you co-brand and send it out. So there's ways to save money here. And on our team, what we actually prefer to do, because you can steal from Peter to pay Paul on this, right? It's your own money. But we prefer to spend less in this category of lead gen and to spend more in salaries. So hiring better people. Because to us, that was a lead generation piece, a customer service piece. That's a retention piece, right? So we knew that when we had great operations staff to support our agents, that we would get return business from that. And that's technically lead generation. Again, we knew where we stood though. We knew where we were out of line in our expenses and where we weren't, because we looked at it on a monthly basis. So again, you can find your GCI category here. They're all stacked up, and say, where do I fall? What am I spending? Or you can just plug in exactly what you make to the calculator in the Excel sheet I give you, and it'll do a whole sheet for you. Just probably more effective. Okay, this chart of accounts is what I'm referring to, this monthly profit and loss. Again, you can pull these off of all sorts of Keller Williams information. You can pull them in Excel versions, and they're located in a lot of accounting software. So we're not expecting you to go be the accountant here. It's an awareness of it and where your money needs to be going. Now, this is something I'm very passionate about. It's not in your book. This is again, there's about 3 or 4 Jenny Mosier business planning things in here that you're only going to get with me. But this talks about the 5 buckets. The 5 buckets are an idea that you should be running your business like a business. So I believe Bob Klinsky, did he come and talk to y'all's group, Katie? Yeah. So he may have given you a bit of a rundown of this, except for I think Bob tells you to have like 9 accounts or something, which great, fine. Bob is one of the, spending even a moment with him talking business, and your mind will be blown and filled with more education than you can imagine. What I always took from him is this idea that you are not your business. And so establishing yourself and not thinking about all the money flows to you and your personal finances first is very important here. So in an ideal world, you would set it up. And again, it's different in every state. I don't know if you can write checks to LLCs or whatever in Alabama. I know it's different. But regardless, when you receive a commission check, the first thing you need to do, the first bucket you need to put money into is your tax bucket. I know some market centers, actually, Katie, I'm sorry if I'm saying this, you're going to kill me. Actually, I was teaching in the Middle Georgia Market Center, and they'll pull money out of your check for you and hold it for your taxes. I mean, that's how often people get in trouble with this.
We're not there yet, Jenny. We're not there yet.
Not there yet. I hear you. I hear you. So you guys are going to have there. By the way, I've been in 3 or 4 market centers in Atlanta. None of them had that either. I was blown away yesterday when they said that. But that's how often people get in trouble with this, guys. You have to understand that when you've earned that money, it's automatically the government's money. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. It's not yours. You're going to have to pay taxes. So go ahead and put that money aside so it's not a stressor down the road. Take part of your check and put it into one account. Then put money into your business operating account, right? The way I like to do it is I have a credit card that I put all my business expenses on so that I can easily sort and keep up with them on a monthly basis. But then on a monthly basis, I pay off that credit card from this business operating account. Then I throw a little bit in my business savings account. Let me travel down here. Throw a little bit in my business savings account. Right? Then in my personal operating account, what I do is every on the first of every month, I move what I know I need to live into this personal operating account. If I move more than I need to live, guess what happens? I spend it. So when it stays over here, it's much safer. So I move what I need to into my personal operating account to live off of. It's sort of like paying myself. For many years, I just made a transfer. Now I use an S Corp where I actually like pay myself like a W-2 employee. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that you've separated those two things. And so created, so you take money from your business account, then put it in your personal account. And then when this builds up, your business savings builds up, then throw it in your personal savings account, right? And that's your vacation fund. And that's, saving for your next house or whatever it happens to be. But the idea is that you pay your taxes first, you pay your business second, then you pay yourself. Then you pay yourself. So many people pay yourself, then take care of your business, and then come April that they push to October, pay their taxes. It's a dangerous place to live. I don't want to see you wound up there because it's not a fun place to be. So many people get behind on their taxes. All right. That's my personal soapbox. We're going to move on. So, your turn. Again, in the plan for the budget model is to actually just be aware and have a budget, right? Is to create it and then compare your budget to the MREA budget and see where you're different. So you would have to go through and do all these little calculations at 9%, 1%, 2.5%. I'm not going to make you do that. I'm going to send you the Excel chart so you can plug that in and see where you stand out. Great place to start. As your 411, for this, the annual goal is to have a budget and the monthly goal is to review your P&L. There's not a weekly. All right, we are getting into the organizational model. We are wrapping it up, guys. So organizational model is all about hiring people, leverage in your life. And a lot of the times people say, hey, how do I know who to hire? How do I know when to hire? Well, you know when to hire when the pain of not hiring feels worse than the pain of hiring. So for many of you, you probably already have leverage of some sort in your life. If anyone there has anyone who cleans their house, you have leverage. If anyone has anyone who does your yard work, you have leverage. If you pay somebody to do your taxes, if you've ever used Instacart, right? Those are forms of leverage in our life. And it's because we made the decision that it makes more sense to pay someone else to help us because we can have a higher return on our own hourly wage than it makes for us to do it. Or you just don't like doing it and you won't do it.
Shift, Jenny, shift.
Hmm?
Shift.
Yes.
Shit.
Yeah. That's exactly, you nailed it. So, in the organizational model, a lot of this is all about just getting leverage in your life, right? So, of the three L's, leads, listings, and leverage, this is the one the organizational model covers. And this is the model. This is what it looks like. It looks like a big giant spider web, right? Something I think that a lot of us forget, though, is that this builds slowly and over time. You don't just go to this. In fact, if you try to just hire to this for success, you're going to implode and it's not going to work. We've seen it. People try to do that. It doesn't work. You cannot just hire your way to success. You have to build on it. And so the first place you build is you start with you. So here you are. You are this big red dot all by yourself on an island. And this might be where many of you are right now in your business. And so you say, okay, well, yeah, I am here. I'm not the big spider web of choices. And so you look at what you need to be focusing on at this point in your business. One thing that you need to keep in mind is as you're here alone, still in your business, this is called level 1, by the way. You should be working on your 6 core competencies, is what they call them in business. Hang on, are they on the slide? No. And the core competencies are going to be basically learning how to be a real estate agent. Okay, that's your job right now. So you're going to be learning presentations and showing buyers and writing contracts and managing your money. That's what you should be focusing on before you try to go hire people on your team. Once you have that down, your first hire is an admin. It's not another agent. It's not somebody to do some strange form of marketing. It's an admin hire to take the contract to close process off your plate. It's an admin hire. And until you have this amazing first hire, you don't go anywhere else. You just stick here. Career visioning, 30, 60, 90, success through others. There's a whole series called the Leverage series. And that series teaches you how to hire because as real estate agents, we are entrepreneurs. We like to go, go, go. We weren't the corporate type. It's why most of us left the corporate world, right? To go into real estate. And hiring is a very corporate activity. And so is training. And so we're not naturally, that's not one of our natural abilities. And if it is, you're definitely going to hit a ceiling pretty soon on it, going back to E to P. So we have to learn how to do this better. We need a system in place for it, and that system's career visioning. So look into that before you make your first hire. Don't just go hire someone because you feel like it, because let me tell you, we like everybody. That's part of our curse, and you're going to make the wrong hire if you do it. So once you're at this place and you've hired an admin, the next position you hire for is another admin. I said another admin. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily be 2 full-time people, but these are 2 admin, okay? There's 2 big reasons you do this. Most people, they really want to go hire an agent after they hire their first admin. But what happens if that admin quits? You got to take the job back. And that agent you hired on the split isn't going to like that very much because one of the reasons they joined your team was for the support of the admin, right? That's part of the reason that they wanted to be on your team. And now they're gone. And now you've got to stop your business and go find someone new and train someone new, and you're going to move backwards. So if you already have 2 people in place and one can do those things for you in the event someone leaves, then great. By the way, because there's 2 of them, they won't be overworked. They probably won't leave. 2 admin hires, then your first agent. So it pops up really quickly after that. So you get your admin in place. That's the core of your business. This next part is where you're going to hire your first agents. So, this has a showing assistant. And then a lead ISA or OSA. And ISA is an inside salesperson and OSA is an outside salesperson. Those people are calling and setting up appointments for your leads. Then you still have your 2 admin that you had all along. Okay. Then you branch out, and basically this just goes a little bit deeper where your showing assistant becomes the lead buyer's agent and they hire people. and your first admin becomes a lead admin and they hire people, and your lead manager hires someone underneath them, you still only have 3 people reporting to you though, and you're not making any more of the hires. The people under you are making the hires because you've taught them how to do this. All right. As you continue to grow, this is really, again, about going deeper instead of wider. It's just more people in the same category, more buyer's agents, more admin, more sales, more phone lead type people. In this phase, what you're giving away is you're hiring a listing agent. A lot of people stay right here with maybe a fewer circles. They stay right here where they stay in the business taking the listings. They have buyer's agents. It's a very profitable place to be. Most people stop there when they're team building because it's so profitable and they like selling real estate. They don't want to get out of the business. They don't want to get out of the day-to-day. So they stop right here, and that's perfectly fine. And it's a highly profitable business. This over here, this example is where the next thing you give away are your listings. So it's the last agent role that you give away are your listings because they're your bread and butter. And you want to make sure your clients are taken care of. And so you hire a listing agent. Keep in mind when you hire that agent, it probably needs to be someone with experience because they're taking listings and you're going to have to pay them as such. So pay attention to your lead pool. If you don't have enough leads to give out to someone at this point, don't make this hire until you have established more leads. From there, once you have your positions established, you got your director of sales who's over all of your agents, your listing and buyer's agents. You have your director of operations who's over all your admin, and then you have the same call center lead generation source. That can also be a marketing person, director of lead gen and marketing, and they're over your ISA and your OSA. Then you can expand. So we mentioned this is all you hear about expansion, but you can take the models that you've already created successfully where you are and expand them to another physical location. That's what expansion is. Then at the seventh level, this is where you actually step out of your business and you have someone else run it as a CEO. Okay, you replace yourself and you're working on your vision and your accountability and your growth and your standards. Now, a lot of people can mistake this for like you live in Fiji and you don't pay attention to your team anymore, but that couldn't be further from the truth, right? The truth is that you always, even if you don't have your hand on the ball, you have your eye on the ball. Because a real estate team that's functioning at this level, again, is highly profitable and comes with a lot of opportunity. And so you do not want to get to a point where you're completely out of it all the time. Gary Keller even continues to step in and out of that seventh level. Right now he's out of it. The part of last year he was in it because he didn't have a CEO or he actually let go of the president of the company. So he stepped back in, right? Because he had to, and then he replaced himself again, and now he's focusing on vision and accountability and growth and standards. But I know for a fact, because he's done it a number of times just since I've been with Keller Williams over the past 10 years, is he's stepped back into that CEO role when needed. The other thing I want to point out really quickly is that this hiring process, you're only making 3 key hires. You're hiring your lead operations person, your lead agent, and your director of lead generation. And if you can get those 3 key hires, they hire everyone else and they manage their individual departments and you're managing them. That's a great opportunity for someone. That's what I did. I moved through those positions until I was director of sales and then CEO of the team. And it's something where you guys might see circles and I see faces and names. The people's whose lives were impacted because someone else made a decision to grow a big business, because Gary Keller decided that he wanted his world to be bigger. We all have a wonderful place to work, right? And so understand that these aren't just circles, they're people and they're opportunities. And when we have the chance that we live in a place of abundance, so you have too many leads or you have a great business that's growing and that you can share that with someone else, what a wonderful place to be. So it's not just about taking the work off your plate, it's about finding opportunities for other people. And I personally am so grateful that the team that I worked on chose to do that. So again, this is the only slide for expansion, guys. It's kind of piddly, but basically it's saying that you have you and you got your systems in place, and then you can go and find agents in other locations, right? That's pretty much what expansion is. It should feel very natural in terms of where it goes. And there are some expansion agents who really, really have this nicely figured out. And there are some that could probably use a little work on the models, just like there's some real estate agents who really, really have their business figured out, and some who could use a little bit of work. But the idea of expansion is something that came on the scene about 5 or 6 years ago. And I think everyone's felt their way through it. And I am glad to see that there are standards and models around it. And we have a whole class, if this is something you're interested in, called Expansion Systems Orientation, ESO, that you can take if you want to learn more about expansion, but it is one of the models. So there's your hub structure and your benefits to expansion. All righty. So who do you need in your life, right? In your organizational model? There's you. Who can you bring into your world? And leverage doesn't necessarily have to be an admin. What if it's someone that helps you pick up your kids and Uber them around to all of their different activities in the afternoon? What if it's, you getting your groceries delivered and spending an extra hour lead generation instead of going to the grocery store? What if this is giving someone an opportunity, maybe a stay-at-home mom who's wanting to get back to work, and she loves making marketing flyers, and this is your opportunity to work with someone and to share in the abundance of your business, right? This can look like a lot of things that go back to, what are you doing that you shouldn't be doing? What do you keep hitting your head on that a person or a system could help with? And put that on your goals. Put that in your plan for 2022. To change your world. So, pulling it all together. Ahas, action. I threw a lot of information at you guys very quickly. I recognize that. This class can be 3 hours. This class can be 3 days. But it's more important about what you go do now. So before you leave the room, I'd love for you to look back at the economic, lead gen, budget, organizational models, and say to yourself, what is the 1 or 2 action steps that I'm going to take over the next few days to put into place? Even if that's, I'm going to set a date to fully business plan with an accountability partner, with Katie, or with whoever, you're thinking about doing this with, your spouse, your team, whoever. And set a date and go through and don't try to change your whole business, because you won't do it. But decide what areas you're going to tweak. Is it just tracking appointments? Is it focusing in on hiring your admin so that you can get some better systems in place? Is it about doubling the size of your database? What's your one big thing for the year? And then what are the 3 tiny spokes that you want to perfect? And remember that this plan isn't built on hope. These plans are built on models and facts and proven results. And you can do it. You guys are awesome. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you.
I want to take questions or anything that you guys have. I want to hang out and be here as a resource for you if you need it.
Do you have any ahas, feedback for Jenny? Like what's going on? Comments?
I need to start on next year now.
Yes. Yeah, me too.
Love that.
I think my biggest aha from when I took this the first time is, like Jenny said, it felt like so much. Say, oh, I want to make $50,000, $100,000. When you go in here and do the math, it's a headache, but you have to do it one time. And yes, I could do 4 appointments a month. Right? Can you talk to 4 people a month? Yes. Okay. I think that mind switch is extremely helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And so it's, but it's the actual act of chunking it down and looking at the math and going, no, that's possible. Like that's not just possible, that's completely reasonable. And now I know what to focus on. And when I'm off track, I can fix it quickly versus like, oh, I didn't hit $100,000, whatever that is. Like that feels too big. And it's like driving a cruise ship where the appointments or the daily contacts, they're like a speedboat that you can shift and change and really buckle down on and get a lot knocked out, even if you're off track or behind, or find yourself behind. Mhm.
Anything else? One more question. A takeaway for me would be tracking those appointments. I like how you get that poster board, number it, and that way you track it. And then another thing I will definitely take into consideration is that when I'm talking to anyone from a lead or referral or whatever, the main goal is to get the appointment signed. So like make sure that when you're on the phone every day, my goal is to get an appointment and then appointment to get the agreement signed.
That's right. Appointment's the goal. I love it. That appointment board really changed, I mean, my whole world. And then as it got bigger, or longer, I just used a Google sheet. And so it was always on my phone. So I just like would go in and type their name. And I color coded mine and all that stupid stuff. But really the whole point is you just need to keep track of it in the first place. And if you know how many need to go on and you're just keeping track of that, that's the best place to start. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I love your training space up there. What a cool little, you got the whole Zoom thing set up. And I hope you enjoyed watching me stand inside slides. That's my new trick. Yeah. All right, Katie, I'll be in touch. You guys have a great afternoon.
Bye.